My sister called my marriage a mistake over a pecan pie. She didn't yell. Abby rarely yelled when she was being cruel. She used the same airy voice she used when telling a waiter he'd brought the wrong dressing, as though the problem might correct itself if she sounded pleasantly disappointed. Honestly, Leah, marrying him was a mistake. My mother's fork made a tiny scratch against her plate. My father stared down at the last melting cube in his iced tea. Neither of them looked surprised enough. Across the Christmas table, Daniel placed both hands beside his plate. "Could you repeat that?" Abby's smile disappeared. The question was quiet, almost polite, but something in the room shifted. My mother looked at me then, not at Abby, not at Daniel, at me. She was waiting for me to fix it. That was the moment I understood that everyone at that table knew exactly what my sister had said. The only question was whether I would make it harmless for them. 3 weeks earlier, I was standing in my parents' dining room with a black marker between my teeth, while Abby told me she was too overwhelmed to pack the china. "You're better at deciding what matters," she said. She was sitting at the table, scrolling through cabinet handles on her phone. Behind her, my mother's china hutch stood open, crowded with gold-rimmed plates nobody had eaten from since my grandmother's funeral. I took the marker out of my mouth. "It all matters to Mom. That's why you're better at this. That sentence doesn't mean anything. It means you have patience. It means you don't want to do it." Abby looked up, offended by my accuracy. At 35, she still had the face she'd had at 16 whenever consequences arrived. Wide brown eyes, parted lips, and a suggestion that someone had switched the rules while she wasn't looking. "I said I'd help, didn't I? You said you'd handle the move. I am handling it. You're shopping for drawer pulls. They're cabinet handles. Thank God you're here." She gave me a look, but the corner of her mouth twitched. That was part of the problem with Abby. She could make me laugh half a second before I remembered I was angry. The old house had been sold 8 days earlier. My parents had lived there for 31 years, and every closet seemed determined to prove it. There were extension cords with no known appliance, plastic tubs of tax returns from the 90s, 6 gravy boats, and enough reusable shopping bags to clothe a small nation. My mother, Diane, stood in the doorway holding a snow globe. "Do either of you remember where this came from?" Abby glanced at it. Probably a gift. Obviously it was a gift. Then I remembered correctly. Mom ignored her and turned to me. Inside the globe, a tiny white church leaned under glittering snow. I recognized it because I recognized nearly everything in that house. Aunt Carol brought it back from Vermont, the year Dad tried to fry the turkey. My father called from the living room. That fryer was defective. "You put frozen meat into hot oil," Mom called back. The instructions lacked emphasis. Abby laughed. Mom smiled despite herself, and for a moment we were all exactly what we claimed to be. A close family teasing one another while packing up the house where we'd spent every Christmas since I was 7. Then Mom handed me the globe. "You'll make sure this doesn't break." Not Abby. Me. I wrapped it in 2 sheets of tissue paper and a dish towel before placing it in the box marked "Christmas Fragile." Abby returned to her phone. My parents were moving into a 2-bedroom condo 12 minutes away, the kind of place with gray floors, white cabinets, and a clubhouse my father already hated. The problem was that their buyer wanted possession on January 3rd, and construction delays meant the condo wouldn't be ready until sometime in February. Abby had been the one pushing them to sell. "You can't keep up with this place forever," she'd told Dad in September, after he spent 2 days clearing branches from the yard. "Move while it's still your decision." It was sensible advice. Abby was good at beginning sensible conversations. She was less interested in what came after them. She found the real estate agent, sent our parents' condo listings, and took them to an open house. Mom told everyone at church that Abby was guiding us through the whole thing. I made the spreadsheet of expenses, arranged the inspection appointments, met the electrician, collected estimates from movers, and spent 2 Saturdays going through the garage with Dad. Whenever I mentioned any of that, Mom said, "You girls make such a good team." That afternoon, Abby's phone chimed. She frowned at the screen. Oh no. I stopped wrapping a sugar bowl. What? The contractor says they have to tear out more drywall. Abby and her husband Marcus had bought their house 5 years earlier. There was nothing wrong with the kitchen except that Abby hated the dark cabinets and the way the island angled toward the breakfast nook. Somehow this had expanded into a renovation involving plumbing, flooring, and a temporary cooking station in their laundry room. Is there mold? I asked. No, the electrical is weird. Dangerous weird? Expensive weird. That's different. It's still awful. She pushed her phone toward me, showing me a picture of an open wall, colored wires crossed between wooden studs. It looked like every wall before somebody put the wall part on. I handed the phone back. I'm sorry. The timing couldn't be worse. I looked at the china surrounding me. Abby noticed. I know, I said I'm sorry. You actually didn't. Well, I am. Mom stepped closer and rubbed Abby's shoulder. It's all right, honey. You have enough on your plate. I had a 12-piece place setting in my hands, but apparently my plate remained available. Mom looked at the boxes stacked against the wall. Leah doesn't mind. There were a lot of ways I could have answered that. What came out was, I can come back Thursday. Abby relaxed so quickly it was almost impressive. Are you sure? Mom asked, already smiling. Daniel has a work dinner, so I'll have a few hours. You don't need to rush home just because he's there, Abby said. He can survive one night without you. I stared at her. What? Nothing. She had a habit of treating my marriage like a scheduling conflict. Daniel never objected when I visited my parents, so she objected on his behalf, creating a version of him who sat at home with a stopwatch and a list of my offenses. If I left dinner before 10, Daniel needed me home. If we spent Thanksgiving morning with his brother, Daniel had taken half the holiday. If I declined a Sunday errand because we had plans, Daniel had made plans. In reality, Daniel was the person who had replaced my parents' leaking garbage disposal, while Abby photographed it for moral support. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. Speak of the handsome devil, Daniel had written. Are you still alive beneath the decorative plates? I took a picture of the table and sent it. He replied, Tell my mother-in-law I'll offer $20 for the gravy boat shaped like a duck. I smiled. Abby caught me. What did he say? He wants the duck gravy boat. Nobody gets that, Mom said immediately. That was your grandmother's. Mom, you hate it. I can hate something and still want it treated properly. From the living room, Dad said, Put my name on the duck. You already own the duck, I called. That saves time. I wrote Paul on a strip of masking tape and stuck it to the bottom of the gravy boat. For another hour, we sorted dishes into boxes labeled Keep, Donate, Abby, Leah, and a final category my mother created called Decide Later. Nearly everything migrated into that last box. At 4, Abby stood and stretched. I should go check on Marcus. Is Marcus trapped under a cabinet? No, but he's been dealing with the contractor all day. I looked at her coat on the back of the chair, then at the untouched packing paper beside her. You've been here 90 minutes. It's Sunday. Yes. All day. Leah. Just my name. She could fit an entire accusation inside it. Mom came in carrying 3 framed photographs. Let her go. She has a torn-up kitchen. I wanted to ask why a torn-up kitchen was a tragedy when it belonged to Abby and merely a project when it belonged to someone else. Instead, I took the photographs from Mom. Fine. Abby kissed her cheek, then Dad's. When she reached me, she paused. You're mad. I'm holding 3 picture frames. That isn't an answer. It's the answer I have while holding 3 picture frames. She lowered her voice. I really do appreciate you. Abby could be careless, but she wasn't stupid. She knew exactly when I was close to saying no, and she always found one soft sentence to keep me from reaching it. I know, I said. Her face brightened. I'll come early on Christmas Eve and help with dinner. You promised that last year. And I came. You arrived at 5:30 with olives. They were good olives. They were from the gas station. That gas station has a gourmet section. I laughed because she did. She hugged me with one arm, smelling like expensive vanilla and winter air, and then she left. 10 minutes later, Mom found me wrapping the framed photographs alone. "You have to be patient with her," she said. I am patient with her. She's under a lot of pressure. So am I. Mom blinked, as if I'd spoken in another language. "I know you are, sweetheart, but you handle pressure differently." There it was, the family compliment that came with an invoice. Dad appeared in the doorway with 2 glasses of iced tea. He handed one to me and examined the boxes. "Your mother keeping all of it?" "Apparently, she intends to open a museum. I suggested a cleansing fire, but she said the neighbors would complain." Mom took one of the framed pictures from the table. It showed Abby and me on a beach in matching pink swimsuits, both of us sunburned and squinting. I was 11. Abby was 8 and missing a front tooth. "You two were inseparable," Mom said. "Because Leah wouldn't let me swim by myself," Abby would have said if she'd still been there. The true version was that Mom had told me not to let Abby out of my sight. She always took care of her sister, Dad said. He sounded proud. That was what made it hard. My parents did love me. They admired my reliability, trusted my judgment, and called me before making decisions. Dad remembered that I hated onions. Mom saved magazine articles she thought I'd like. On my birthday, Abby posted long tributes about how lucky she was to have me. They loved me. They also loved the version of me who never made their lives harder. At home that night, Daniel was making grilled cheese sandwiches in our kitchen. He was tall enough that the pendant light over the island seemed badly designed when he stood beneath it. His dark hair was damp from a shower, and he wore the faded gray shirt I kept threatening to throw away. "How's the duck?" he asked. "Staying with Dad. Rejected again. He says you can visit." Daniel slid a sandwich onto a plate and cut it diagonally. He knew I preferred rectangles, so he gave that one to himself and cut mine the other way. "How much did Abby pack?" She was emotionally present, so nothing. She selected cabinet handles. "For your parents? For herself?" He nodded solemnly. "Vital wartime work." I sat at the island and picked up half my sandwich. Her kitchen wall is worse than they thought. Is the house falling down? No. Then I remain unmoved. I tried not to smile. Mom says she has a lot on her plate. Daniel opened a can of tomato soup. "Your mother needs new plates. Yours is apparently the size of a satellite dish." That metaphor fell apart halfway through. I stand by the spirit of it. He poured the soup into a pot, then glanced at the calendar hanging beside the refrigerator. 2 weekends had been crossed out for packing. Our planned trip to Asheville had a question mark beside it now. "Did they settle the housing gap?" he asked. "Not yet. 6 weeks is a long time." "I know. Your dad mentioned a furnished rental. Mom hates the idea of living with someone else's furniture." Daniel looked toward our hallway. I knew what he was looking at. The guest room. "No," I said quickly. I didn't say anything. "You looked." "I looked at our house, from inside our house. They haven't asked." He turned down the burner beneath the soup. "Okay, and if they do, we'll talk about it." "Okay." His agreement irritated me, which was unfair and therefore especially irritating. "You think I won't say no? I think you just answered a question nobody has asked." I set down my sandwich. "They're my parents. I'm aware. Your father's name is currently on a ceramic duck in my phone." Despite myself, I laughed. Daniel came around the island and kissed the top of my head. "I'm not trying to start a fight," he said. "I just miss you." The words landed more heavily than they should have. "I'm right here. I know." He went back to the stove before I could decide whether that answer hurt. Later, while he showered, I checked my phone. There was a new family group message from Abby. Great news, she'd written. I think I solved Mom and Dad's 6-week problem. Underneath it, Mom had responded with 3 red hearts. I stared at the screen, waiting for the rest of the message. Nothing came. I typed, "What does that mean?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, and appeared again. "Don't worry about it," Abby wrote. "I'll explain when it's final." Daniel set a bowl of tomato soup in front of me. "Good news? Abby thinks she solved the housing problem." How? She's keeping it mysterious. That inspires confidence. I called Mom. It rang 5 times before going to voicemail. She's probably in bed, I said. It's 8:15. She reads in bed. Call your dad. Dad answered on the second ring with the television blaring behind him. Hey, sweetheart, Abby said she solved your housing problem. She did? I closed my eyes. Apparently. That's good. What are you and Mom doing between the closing and the condo? Your mother's working on it. She said Abby solved it. Then Abby's working on it. The man had spent 40 years perfecting a system in which information passed close to him without requiring his participation. Dad, are you renting somewhere? Your mother doesn't want to rent. I know. So what's the plan? A game show audience applauded in the background. Hold on, he said. Your mother's asking me something. There was muffled conversation followed by my mother saying, distinctly, I am not. Dad came back. She says it's handled. Handled how? We'll talk about it later. Why later? Another muffled exchange. Then Dad said, she's brushing her teeth. That has nothing to do with what I asked. I don't want toothpaste all over the phone. Daniel held out his hand. Give me the phone. I pulled it closer to my ear. Absolutely not. Who's that? Dad asked. Daniel. Tell him I've got his duck. He knows. Good night, sweetheart, Dad. He hung up. I set the phone beside my soup. Daniel dipped a corner of his sandwich into his bowl. I assume we learned nothing. We learned my father believes phones can contract toothpaste. Useful. I opened the family group message again. Mom's 3 hearts glowed beneath Abby's announcement. I typed, please don't agree to anything involving my house without asking me. I stared at the words, then erased them. What did you write? Daniel asked. Nothing. Strong opening. I don't want to create a problem that doesn't exist. He ate another bite and said nothing. You could try looking less right. I could, but it would feel dishonest. You're enjoying this. I'm eating grilled cheese and watching your family communicate like Cold War governments. Enjoying is a strong word. I sent Abby a private message instead. Call me tomorrow. She responded with a thumbs up. She didn't call. By Thursday, I was back in my parents' dining room, taping cardboard around the China Hut shelves. Abby was supposed to meet me at 6. At 6:20, she texted that the contractor had arrived late. At 6:45, she sent a photograph of Marcus standing in front of a sheet of exposed drywall with his hands on his hips. Can't leave him alone with these people, she wrote. Marcus was a 40-year-old structural engineer. If anybody could survive a conversation with a kitchen contractor, I suspected it was him. Mom stood at the table, wrapping silver candlesticks in newspaper. Abby isn't coming? She asked. Apparently Marcus requires supervision. Those contractors have been taking advantage of them. Marcus designs bridges. That doesn't mean he knows about kitchens. I tightened the tape until the cardboard bent. Mom glanced at me. Don't be irritated. I'm not irritated. You get that line between your eyebrows. This is my face. It isn't an attractive habit. I put down the tape. What's the housing plan? Mom folded newspaper over the base of a candlestick with great care. We're working it out. What does that mean? It means you don't need to worry. I'm coordinating the move. I need to know where your things are going. Most of it goes into storage. And the 2 of you? We aren't going into storage. That clarifies one option. Mom gave me the look she reserved for jokes she considered disrespectful. Abby has an idea. What idea? She wants to wait until everything is settled. Why? So no one gets worked up unnecessarily. I leaned both hands on the table. Mom, I'm not asking for the launch codes. Where are you planning to live? Nothing is decided. Then Abby didn't solve it. She's trying, Leah. You don't have to pick apart every word she uses. I turned away before my face could develop another unattractive habit. Dad came in carrying a stack of record albums against his chest. Do either of you want these? Your stereo hasn't worked since 2009, Mom said. The records still work. They don't work by themselves, Paul. He handed the stack to me. On top was an old James Taylor album with a split cardboard sleeve. Daniel has a turntable, he said. Daniel has a turntable because you gave it to him. Then these are his records. Mom pointed toward the box marked Donate. Dad waited until she turned back to the candlesticks and quietly set the albums beside my purse. I smiled at him. He winked. That was how Dad resisted Mom, in tiny, charming acts that left somebody else responsible for the outcome. At 8, Mom ordered pizza. I was kneeling in front of the buffet cabinet when the doorbell rang. Dad couldn't find his wallet, so I paid. "We'll reimburse you," Mom said. "You bought lunch Sunday. That was sandwiches. You don't have to maintain a food ledger." I don't. She absolutely did. By the time I finished eating, she had wrapped my leftover slice in foil and put 2 unopened sodas beside it, restoring the family accounts to what she considered balance. I drove home with Dad's records on the back seat and Abby's unopened roll of packing tape on the passenger floor. Daniel was still at his work dinner. The house was dark except for the light above the stove, which he always left on when I would be home second. I carried in the albums, leaned them against the living room bookcase, and stood there listening to the quiet. Our guest room was across the hall. It held a queen bed, a dresser, and the blue armchair Daniel's brother had helped us wrestle up the stairs. I opened the closet. Half of it contained winter coats and old luggage. The other half was empty. 6 weeks. I imagined Mom rearranging the kitchen drawers because the spoons were too far from everything. Dad falling asleep in front of the television. Their medications lined up by the coffee maker. Daniel whispering in our bedroom because every private conversation would suddenly have an audience. Then I imagined my parents carrying suitcases into a furnished rental. Mom pretending not to be frightened by the unfamiliar rooms. Dad unable to find the light switches. I shut the closet. When Daniel came home, I was in bed with a book open on my chest. He loosened his tie as he entered. "You're awake." "Technically." "How is packing?" Abby couldn't come. He stopped with one shoe off. "Shocking." "Don't." "Sorry. She has contractors in her house, and your parents have an entire house in their house." I closed my book. He removed his other shoe. That sounded better in my head. It would help if you didn't make fun of every single thing. Every single thing? Yes. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed. I make jokes because when I say what I actually think, you defend them. That's not true. You paid for their pizza tonight. I stared at him. How could you possibly know that? You put the receipt on the dresser. I glanced over. The white slip lay beside my earrings. It was $42. I don't care about the pizza. You just brought up the pizza. I care that you come home tired and angry, and then you protect the people who made you tired and angry from anyone noticing. I pulled the comforter higher over my legs. They're moving out of the only house they've had for 30 years. I know, Mom is having a hard time. I know. Dad acts like it's fine, but he hates that condo. I know, Leah. His voice had softened, which somehow made me feel worse. I looked toward the bedroom door. The guest room isn't that small. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Is that what Abby's idea is? No. I don't know. Did they ask? No. Do you want them to stay here? I don't want them stranded. That wasn't my question. It's not just about what I want. It is at least partly about what you want. I hated the careful way he said it. I hated that he was trying not to frighten me away from my own answer. They're not strangers, I said. I didn't say they were. It's 6 weeks. Maybe. What does that mean? Construction gets delayed. You're borrowing trouble now. Your sister borrowed our guest room in a group text and won't explain herself. She did not. Then we agree there's no problem. He stood and gathered his shoes. Where are you going? To put these away. Daniel, he turned. I'm not saying yes. I know. You don't sound like you know. I sound like a person trying very hard not to have a fight with a possibility. He went into the closet. A hanger scraped against the rod. I picked up my book, but the words had become black shapes with no meaning. The next morning, our Asheville reservation sent me an automatic reminder. We were supposed to leave December 29th and come back on New Year's Day. 2 nights in a small hotel downtown, 1 long drive through the mountains, no packing tape. I forwarded it to Daniel with a heart. He answered, "Still happening?" I looked at the moving schedule on my desk. The movers were coming January 2nd. Mom had asked me to be at the house on December 30th to help set aside what they would need during the gap. Of course, I typed. An hour later, Mom called. The mover wants to change the date. To when? December 30th. I closed my eyes. We're out of town. You didn't tell me that. Yes, I did. Twice. Well, I can't keep track of everyone's vacations right now. It's not a vacation. It's 2 nights. I didn't say it was wrong, Leah. She had a gift for disapproving in sentences that denied she was disapproving. Tell the mover January 2nd is the agreed date. They'll charge more. How much? $400. I turned toward my office window. Rain streaked the glass. Behind Mom, I heard Dad ask where she had put the coffee filters. Can Abby be there on the 30th? I asked. She has work. So do I. You're already off. For the trip. Mom sighed. Forget it. We'll pay the extra money. That should have ended it. Instead, I heard myself say, "Let me talk to Daniel." His reply arrived before lunch. Cancel it. I called him. Are you sure? No. I waited. But if we go, you'll spend the whole trip feeling guilty, and I'll spend it pretending not to notice. I'm sorry. So am I. He didn't punish me. That would have been easier. He canceled the hotel, paid the fee, and came home with takeout because I'd worked late. 2 days before Christmas, Abby finally appeared at the house carrying 3 rolls of packing tape and a bottle of wine. Peace offering, she said. Which one? The wine. The tape is an investment in our shared future. She hugged me before I could refuse. For the next hour, she packed efficiently, made Dad laugh, convinced Mom to donate 4 boxes I hadn't been allowed to touch, and reminded me why everyone believed she could handle things. As we carried Christmas decorations upstairs, I asked, "Where are Mom and Dad staying?" She kept climbing. "Abby, it's handled. That isn't an address." She turned at the top of the stairs, a cardboard angel tucked beneath one arm. "Can we please get through Christmas before you turn this into a whole thing?" Turn what into a whole thing? But Mom called from below, asking where I wanted the roasting pan, and Abby walked away. On Christmas afternoon, the old dining room looked almost normal. Mom had hidden the moving boxes in Dad's office. The china was back on the table, the duck gravy boat sat near Daniel's elbow, and Abby arrived only 40 minutes late with olives from an actual grocery store. We were halfway through dinner when Mom smiled at me and said, "I can't tell you what a relief it is knowing your father and I will have somewhere comfortable to stay after the closing." Daniel's hand stopped beneath the table. I looked at Abby. She took a drink of wine. The silence lasted long enough for Dad to reach for the gravy boat. "Where?" I asked. Mom's smile faltered. "What do you mean? Where will you be staying?" She looked at Abby, then back at me. "With you, sweetheart." Dad's hand stopped over the duck. I could feel Daniel beside me without looking at him. He had gone completely still. "You're staying with us," I said, "just until the condo is finished." "Who told you that?" Mom set down her fork. Abby said she had worked it out. I turned to my sister. "Worked it out with whom?" Abby swallowed her wine. "I said you had the space. You said I agreed. I said you wouldn't leave Mom and Dad with nowhere to go. That's not the same sentence. I didn't realize we needed a contract." Daniel's knee touched mine beneath the table. It wasn't a warning. It was barely pressure at all. But Mom saw me glance toward him. "Daniel," she said, "I hope this isn't going to be uncomfortable for you." He took a breath before answering. "I think Leah and I need to discuss it privately." "What is there to discuss?" Dad asked. "Our house," Daniel said. Dad leaned back. "Nobody's trying to take your house." "Paul," Mom murmured. "No, I'd like to understand. We're talking about a few weeks, not moving in permanently." "It could be more than a few weeks," Daniel said, "and no one asked us." Abby gave a short laugh. "Us." Daniel looked at her. "Yes. You know what I mean. I really don't." She put down her glass. Every conversation with Leah is an us now. Nothing can just be simple. My living in my own house is usually an us issue, he said. See? This is exactly what I mean. You make everything sound like a board meeting. Dad placed the duck gravy boat on the table harder than necessary. A streak of brown gravy slid down its white ceramic beak. "Can we not do this on Christmas?" he asked. I almost laughed. The question was so familiar it might have been embroidered on one of Mom's holiday pillows. Nobody ever asked it before the thing was done. Only after someone objected. "Abby offered my house without asking me," I said. "Our parents' house is closing in 9 days, she replied. Was I supposed to let them sleep in their car? They had other options. What options? A short-term rental. Mom doesn't want that. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. I'm sitting right here. Then she could stay with you. Abby gestured toward the room as though her kitchen walls were visible through several miles of winter air. I don't have a kitchen. You have a microwave, a refrigerator, and a husband who owns a camp stove. It's not about cooking. The whole downstairs is torn apart. Then you should not have volunteered to solve this. I was trying to help by volunteering me. Because you have a guest room. We have a guest room, Daniel said. Abby turned on him. Thank you for the correction. Mom's face had begun to crumple around the edges. She folded her napkin once, then again, aligning the corners precisely. I would never want to stay anywhere we weren't wanted. That isn't what I said, I told her. You didn't have to. Dad looked at Daniel. Did you know this was a possibility? We talked about the possibility that you might ask, so you knew we needed somewhere to stay. Yes. And you didn't offer. Dad, I said. What, I'm asking. Daniel's expression remained controlled, but I knew the small muscle moving near his jaw. I didn't offer our home because that's a decision Leah and I would make together, he said. Abby leaned back in her chair. Of course it is. I stared at her. What is that supposed to mean? Nothing. No, go ahead. She looked at Mom's folded napkin and Dad's gravy-stained duck, anywhere but at me. You've changed, she said finally. That is not an explanation. You used to care about this family. The words struck so cleanly that for a second I had no response. I had spent the last 3 weeks inside that house. Dad's records were leaning against my bookcase. My Asheville reservation had been canceled so I could meet a moving truck Abby had promised to coordinate. You cannot be serious, I said. I'm not saying you don't care at all. How generous. I'm saying everything has become difficult since you got married. Daniel reached for his water. I don't think I'm the source of the moving delay. Don't be cute. I'm trying to understand my role. You know your role. Abby, Marcus said quietly. It was the first time he had spoken since the conversation began. He sat beside her with one hand around his water glass, looking tired in a way that had nothing to do with Christmas dinner. She turned to him. What? Stop. Her face changed. You agree with him? I didn't say that. You told me they couldn't stay with us. I said the house wasn't safe while the electrical work was open. Exactly. That doesn't mean Leah agreed to take them. Abby stared at him. She had expected him to remain part of the furniture. Mom pushed her chair back slightly. Your father and I will find a hotel. Dad frowned. I don't want a hotel. I said we will find one. We can't discuss alternatives without everybody acting like I threw you into the street, I asked. Mom looked at me with wet eyes. You are being very cold. I'm being surprised. At Christmas dinner, in front of everyone. Because Daniel is making you feel like we're imposing. There it was. The shift I should have anticipated. Daniel didn't answer. He looked at me, leaving the space open. I wanted him to fill it. I wanted him to say the perfect sentence that would expose everything without hurting my parents, shame Abby without making her cry, and let me remain the reasonable daughter who had never refused anyone. He didn't. They would be imposing, I said. Mom flinched. I don't mean that as an insult. 6 weeks is a long time. We both work. We have one bathroom upstairs. We had plans. "Which you canceled for them," Daniel said. His tone was mild, but Abby seized on it. "There. That. Keeping score." "I'm not keeping score. You remember everything Leah does for us so you can use it later." "I remember because she comes home exhausted. She never complained before you. Maybe she didn't think anyone would listen." "Daniel," Mom said sharply. Abby's cheeks had gone red. "You have no idea what this family was like before you showed up." "Abby," I warned. "No, he acts like we spent our whole lives exploiting you. He doesn't understand us. He understands that you volunteered our house." "Our house," she repeated. "Everything belongs to the marriage now." "Yes," I said. "That is generally how marriage works. You know what I mean. You keep saying that instead of telling me." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Fine. You used to be my sister before you were his wife." The sentence was childish enough to sound honest. I'm still your sister. Not the same way. I was 34 when I married him, Abby. It's not like he took me out of our shared bedroom. That isn't what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? She looked at me, and beneath the anger I saw something almost frightened. It vanished before I could understand it. "I'm saying you never used to make Mom beg. I haven't made Mom beg for anything. She shouldn't have to ask. That is very convenient coming from someone who offered my home." Mom pressed the napkin to her mouth. Dad stared at his plate. Marcus rubbed his thumb against the side of his glass. Daniel said, "This conversation isn't going anywhere. Leah and I are not agreeing to anything tonight. We'll discuss it at home." Abby's eyes snapped toward him. "Of course you will." "Yes," he said, "because that's where all decisions get made now. At home, away from us, after you've explained to her why helping her own family is unhealthy." "That is not what happens," I said. "You think I don't know you? You think I don't remember how you were? Do you remember that I spent Thursday night packing your mother's candlesticks while you stayed home with Marcus? Our mother. That's the only part you heard?" She turned to Mom. "Do you see what he's done?" Daniel went pale. Not angry pale. Hurt. Something in me hardened, but it was still tangled with the old instinct to make Abby feel understood. "Daniel didn't do anything," I said. "He's turned every favor into evidence." "No." He noticed the evidence. She stared at me as though I had slapped her. Mom whispered my name. Abby gave another brittle laugh. "I hope it was worth it." What was worth what? This. Becoming somebody who needs permission to love her own parents. Daniel's hands moved from his lap to the table, one on either side of his plate. "Stop talking about my marriage." "Why?" "We're all pretending it isn't the problem." "Abby," Marcus said again. She ignored him. Her voice went light and airy, as though she had stepped outside herself and was now commenting on somebody else's poor choice. "Honestly, Leah, marrying him was a mistake." Mom's fork scratched against her plate. Dad looked down at the ice melting in his tea. Daniel set both hands beside his plate. "Could you repeat that?" Abby's smile disappeared. "You heard me." "I did. I'm asking you to say it again. Why?" "Because you said it quickly while looking at Leah, and now everyone is waiting for her to make it less ugly. I'd like you to say it knowing we all heard you." "That's enough," Dad said. Daniel didn't raise his voice. "I agree." Mom looked at me. There it was again, the request she never had to speak. Calm your husband. Comfort your sister. Save Christmas. Abby's eyes shone. "I said your marriage was a mistake." Daniel nodded once. "Thank you. Don't talk to me like I'm an employee. I asked you to take responsibility for a sentence. You think you're so calm. That doesn't mean you're kind." "No," he said. "It means I'm calm." "Please," Mom whispered. "Can we all just stop?" I looked at Daniel. The hurt was still there, carefully held behind his face. Then I looked at Abby, who seemed furious that repeating the sentence had made it belong to her. Finally, I looked at my parents. "You can't stay with us," I said. Mom went very still. Dad blinked. "What?" "Our house is not an option." Leah, Mom said, don't make a permanent decision because everyone is upset. I'm not. I'm making a decision because nobody asked me. You said we could discuss it, Dad told Daniel. We did, I said. I'm saying no. Abby pushed back her chair. There, Merry Christmas. Marcus closed his eyes. Mom stood and began collecting plates, though half of us were still eating. I'll make calls tomorrow. Mom, sit down. I have dishes. I'll do them. I don't need your help. The sentence should have felt like freedom. It didn't. Dad rose, lifted the duck gravy boat, and carried it toward the kitchen. Brown gravy dripped onto the white tablecloth behind him. Nobody pointed it out. Daniel and I left 20 minutes later. Mom let me hug her, but her arms stayed at her sides. Dad shook Daniel's hand as though they had concluded a disappointing business meeting. Marcus followed us to the porch. I'm sorry, he said. The cold air sharpened every smell. Wood smoke, wet leaves, someone's peppermint candle. You didn't say it, Daniel replied. Marcus looked back through the glass door. Abby stood in the dining room with her arms folded. I should have stopped this sooner, he said. So should I told him. In the car, Daniel waited until we reached the end of the street. Are you okay? No, me neither. We drove past houses outlined in colored lights. A plastic Santa waved mechanically from one yard, cheerful and relentless. After 2 blocks, I said, You made her repeat it. Yes. Why? Because she knew you'd absorb it if she said it fast enough. I turned toward the window. Daniel kept both hands on the wheel. I'm not sorry I asked. I didn't say you should be. You're angry with me. I'm angry with everyone. That's fair. His calmness irritated me again, but now I could hear the effort underneath it. My parents have nowhere to stay, I said. They have options. They're going to blame you, I know. They'll say you made me refuse. Probably. I looked at him. Doesn't that bother you? Yes. Then why do you sound so reasonable? Because if I say what I want to say about your sister, we'll spend the rest of Christmas discussing my vocabulary. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. It turned into something close to a sob. Daniel reached across the console and took my hand. After a while, he said, I'll stand beside any boundary you choose. But it has to become yours, Leah. I can't keep being the reason you're allowed to want something. I pulled my hand away. Not because he was wrong. Because he wasn't. He didn't ask me to take his hand again. When we got home, the porch light had burned out. Daniel used his phone to illuminate the lock while I stood behind him, holding the covered plate Mom had pushed at me on the way out. You forgot your leftovers, she'd said, as if that were the worst thing I had forgotten. Inside, I placed the plate in the refrigerator. Daniel took off his coat, hung it up, then moved mine from where I'd dropped it across a kitchen chair. I can hang up my own coat, I said. I know. You don't have to do things at me. He stopped with the hanger in his hand. I'm putting away a coat. I know. He waited. I'm sorry, I said. Me too. For what? I haven't decided yet. I laughed once, without meaning to. He hung up the coat. There. Christmas is saved. My phone began vibrating against the counter. The family group message contained 11 new texts, all from Abby. I hope you're happy. Mom is crying. Dad won't talk to anyone. Marcus is acting like this is somehow my fault. I was defending our family. I'm sorry I care about our parents having a roof. Your husband humiliated me. And then, 2 minutes later, you didn't even take your presents. That last message hurt more than the others. Our wrapped gifts were still under my parents' tree, beside the cardboard boxes Mom had hidden in Dad's office. I had spent half of December choosing theirs. Daniel glanced at my screen. You don't have to answer tonight. If I don't, she'll keep going. If you do, she'll keep going with material. I turned the phone face down. It buzzed again. Then again. Daniel walked upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen staring at the covered plate. Through the translucent plastic wrap, I could see a slice of turkey, mashed potatoes, and a neat square of stuffing. Mom had added cranberry sauce in a separate little container so it wouldn't run into anything. She could be furious with me and still make sure my food didn't touch. I called her. She declined the call after one ring. I called Dad. He answered with, "Your mother's gone to bed. I was calling you. I'm tired too. I want to make sure you're okay. We'll manage." His voice had changed. Dad usually answered the phone like I'd called to offer him tickets to something. Now he sounded formal, almost careful. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Your mother will make some calls. I can help find a rental. She doesn't want your help tonight." "What do you want?" "I wanted a peaceful Christmas." My eyes stung. I didn't know about the plan. "I believe you." "Then why are you angry with me?" He exhaled into the receiver. "I'm not angry. That meant he was." "Dad, your sister shouldn't have said what she said?" "No, Daniel shouldn't have pushed her." He asked her to repeat her own words, "at the dinner table." She said them at the dinner table. It had already gotten out of hand. "Because Abby offered our home and then insulted my husband. I'm not arguing with you. You're doing something. I'm going to bed." The line went silent. I stood in the kitchen with the phone against my ear until the call ended itself. Upstairs, Daniel was brushing his teeth. I sat on the edge of the bed and took off my earrings. "Dad thinks you pushed her." Daniel spat, rinsed the sink, and wiped his mouth. "Okay? Don't do that." "Do what?" "Say okay like you don't care." "I care. I'm also not surprised." He said Abby shouldn't have said it. How brave. You don't have to be sarcastic. You're right. He climbed into bed and picked up his book. "You think I'm defending him. I think you're trying to make his response sound better because you need it to be better." I dropped an earring onto the nightstand. "You've had an answer for everything tonight." Daniel closed the book over one finger. "Would you like me to tell you your family handled this beautifully? I'd like you to understand that I can't turn them off because they hurt you. I'm not asking you to turn them off. You want me to stop helping. I want you to stop helping when helping means they get to decide for you. They need somewhere to live, and they have money for a rental. Mom is scared. Then help her be scared in a rental." The sentence sounded cold, but his face didn't. He looked tired. I changed into pajamas and got into bed without answering. For 20 minutes, he read while I pretended to sleep. Then he turned off the lamp. In the darkness, I said, "I meant it." "What? That they can't stay here? I know." "How?" "Because you said it after you stopped looking at me." I lay on my back, eyes open. He reached beneath the comforter. This time, I took his hand. By morning, Abby had deleted 3 of her messages, including the one about Daniel humiliating her. She had replaced them with a single paragraph. "I'm sorry things got so heated. I shouldn't have said what I said, but I was upset because Mom felt unwanted. I hope at some point we can all own our part in what happened." I read it twice. Daniel was making coffee. "She apologized," I said. He looked over his shoulder. "Did she?" I read the message aloud. "Ah," he said. "What?" "I'm waiting for the apology. She said she shouldn't have said it. She also put your mother's feelings in the middle and assigned homework to the group. You're impossible." He handed me a mug. "Merry Christmas. It's the day after Christmas." Exactly. The pressure is off. He kissed my forehead and went to shower. I typed several responses to Abby. "You told our parents they could live in my house without asking me." Delete. "What part do you think I need to own?" Delete. "I'm sorry, too." Delete faster. Finally, I wrote, "I need some space. I'll contact Mom and Dad directly about the move." Abby answered almost immediately. "So you're cutting me out now?" I put the phone in a drawer. It still took me less than an hour to start searching for furnished rentals. I told myself I was gathering information, not reversing my decision. I made a list of 8 places within 15 minutes of the condo. 2 required 3-month leases. 1 had photographs that seemed designed to conceal a serious problem with the ceiling. Another allowed short stays but charged more for 6 weeks than my parents had paid for their first car. I found a small furnished apartment in a complex near the interstate. It had a ground floor entrance, a full kitchen, and beige furniture Mom would describe as depressing. I sent her the link. She didn't answer. I sent it to Dad. He replied, "We are looking into our options." Our options sounded like language dictated by an attorney. The next day, Mom called while I was taking down our outdoor lights. "The movers confirmed for Saturday," she said. "I know. We need you there by 7:30. They aren't coming until 9. There are things to do." "Is Abby coming?" A pause. "She'll be there when she can." Meaning? Her contractor is trying to finish the electrical before New Year's. I stood on the porch holding a string of white lights. Through the window, Daniel was vacuuming pine needles beneath our tree. I canceled my trip to be there. Nobody asked you to cancel. The lights tightened around my hand. "You called because the movers wanted Saturday. I told you we would pay the extra $400. And then you sighed like I'd suggested setting the money on fire. I can't control how you interpret a sigh. You knew I would cancel. I did not. You absolutely did." Mom became quiet. A car passed, tires hissing on wet pavement. "We never had to measure every word with you before," she said. There was no anger in her voice. That made it worse. "I'm not measuring every word. I'm asking you to say what you mean. I mean that your father and I are under enormous stress. Your sister's house is torn apart, and somehow we have become villains for thinking our daughter might let us stay in her empty room. My room is not empty just because no one sleeps there. You know what I mean? That phrase again. Actually, I don't. I don't have the energy for this. What are you doing after closing? We'll stay at the Hawthorne Suites for a few nights. A hotel is more expensive than the furnished apartment I sent. I'm aware." "Then why? Because your father said he would rather do that." Dad hated hotels. He complained about their pillows, thermostats, coffee, curtains, parking lots, and the tiny soaps he claimed were an insult to the concept of soap. "Put Dad on. He's not here." "Where is he?" "At the hardware store." "For what?" "I don't know, Leah. He is an adult man who can visit a hardware store without filing an itinerary." She hung up. I remained on the porch with the lights looped around my arm. Daniel opened the front door. "Everything okay?" "I'm not sure." "That sounded like your mother. They're staying at the Hawthorne Suites." "Okay, for a few nights." He leaned against the doorframe. "And after that?" She wouldn't say. "What do you want to do?" "I want to show her the apartment." "Then show her." "Will you come with me?" Daniel looked at the lights cutting red marks into my palm. "Is this you helping her choose a rental?" he asked. "Or you trying to prove that saying no didn't make you a bad daughter?" I pulled the lights loose. "Can it be both?" "I guess it can." The apartment manager agreed to let us see the furnished unit that afternoon. Daniel came, though he mostly kept his hands in his coat pockets and let me ask questions. The place was clean. That was the kindest word for it. The walls were tan, the carpet was brown, and the sofa appeared to have been designed by people who distrusted comfort. A fake fern occupied one corner. "Mom will hate that," I said. "The fern, the entire color spectrum." Daniel sat on the sofa and immediately stood again. "Your father will declare war on this cushion." I photographed the kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and small concrete patio. I sent everything to Mom with the monthly price and available dates. She responded before we reached the car. "Thank you, but we have it handled." I called her. "What does handled mean?" "It means you can stop worrying." "I'm standing outside a furnished apartment. I didn't ask you to do that." My breath clouded the windshield. Daniel got into the driver's seat and closed his door quietly. "Then tell me the plan. We're staying at the Hawthorne. For 6 weeks? For now. Mom, we'll discuss it as a family. I am family. You made it clear last night that Daniel is the family you consult now." She ended the call. I lowered the phone. Daniel started the car but didn't pull out. She said I made it clear you're the family I consult now. I am. You know what she meant? Yes. I stared at the fake fern through the apartment window. It feels like they're making me choose. Daniel put the car in reverse. "No," he said. "They're making you feel punished for choosing anything they didn't choose first." On moving day, I arrived at 7:25. Mom opened the door, looked past me toward the driveway, and asked, "Where's Daniel?" "At home," I said. Mom's eyebrows rose. "He isn't helping? He wasn't invited. I didn't realize your husband required a formal invitation to help his in-laws move. You made him shake hands on the way out of Christmas like he'd lost a lawsuit. I was being polite. So is he." She opened the door wider. "The coffee is in the kitchen." The house was colder than usual. Most of the curtains had been taken down, and the bare windows made every room look exposed. Boxes stood in tight rows along the walls. Without the rugs and pictures, our voices seemed to belong to strangers. Dad came down the hallway carrying a lamp without its shade. "Where's Daniel?" "Home." "Oh." He looked disappointed, which made me defensive on Daniel's behalf and guilty on my father's. "What are you doing with that?" I asked. "Your mother put it in the donate pile." "It's broken," Mom called. "It works if you hold the cord a certain way. That is the definition of broken." Dad lowered his voice. "It's a good lamp." "Put it by the records," I told him. "The records are at your house." "I know." His face softened slightly. "Right." I took the lamp from him and set it beside a stack marked storage. The shade was already gone, so even if he won the argument, he would own a naked lamp that required physical restraint to function. In the kitchen, Mom had arranged bagels on a paper plate and written the moving schedule on the back of an envelope. The movers would load the storage unit first, return for the condo boxes being held in a smaller climate-controlled space, then take their luggage and immediate necessities to the Hawthorne Suites. Beside the back door were 7 boxes marked Leah. I pointed at them. "What are those?" "Things that shouldn't go into storage. Then they should go to the hotel. There isn't room." "What's in them?" "Christmas decorations, photographs, some kitchen things." "You need kitchen things at a hotel? I don't want them sitting in storage. They'll be in storage for 6 weeks, hopefully less." I opened the top box. Inside were 2 photo albums, the snow globe from Aunt Carol, 3 framed pictures, and the silver candlesticks Mom had wrapped while telling me not to be irritated with Abby. "Why does this say my name?" "Because your garage is clean and dry." "You didn't ask." Mom pressed her lips together. "I thought you would let us store a few boxes. This is 7. You have a 2-car garage with 2 cars in it. Fine." She snatched the marker from the counter and drew a line through my name. "I'll put them in commercial storage and hope for the best. The best is probably what will happen. Your grandmother's photographs could be ruined. They're in plastic tubs inside a climate-controlled unit. You've made your point." "I don't think I have." The doorbell rang. Mom placed the marker down with careful force. "That will be the movers." It was Abby. She entered carrying a tray of coffees and wearing new white sneakers that had never met a moving day. "I brought caffeine," she announced. Mom's entire face changed. "You didn't have to do that. I know you like the cinnamon latte." "You remembered?" Abby handed me a plain coffee without looking directly at me. "Yours has 1 cream." "Thanks." It was exactly how I drank it. The cup was hot and our fingers touched when I took it. "I tried to get here earlier," she said, addressing the room. "The electrician needed Marcus to shut off the power." Dad looked at the clock. It was 7:40. "You're early," Mom said. Abby smiled with relief. The movers arrived at 8:50. There were 3 of them, all young enough to make Dad watch their lifting technique with concern. Their supervisor, Luis, walked through the house with a clipboard while I explained the labels. Abby stayed near Mom, helping her make final decisions. She was good at it. When Mom tried to reopen a box of serving dishes, Abby put both hands on her shoulders and said, "You have lived without seeing those plates for 9 years. Let them experience life outside this family." Mom laughed and left the box alone. I could have spent an hour arguing the same point. In Dad's office, I found him sitting behind his empty desk. Pale rectangles marked the walls where diplomas and family pictures had hung. His desk lamp was gone, and the only thing left on the blotter was a silver letter opener shaped like a sword. "You okay?" I asked. "Fine. You're sitting in an empty room holding a tiny weapon." He looked down at it. "I couldn't decide where this goes. Probably not your carry-on." He smiled faintly. I sat on the edge of a box. The hotel has a desk. I know, and bad coffee. I'm preparing myself. It's only temporary. That's what everyone says about everything. I didn't have an answer for that. He turned the letter opener between his fingers. Your mother cried after you left. I'm sorry she was hurt. That's a very diplomatic sentence. It's the one I have. He nodded. Dad, did you know Abby hadn't asked me? Not at first. At Christmas. Did you know? Your mother thought it had been discussed. That isn't what I asked. He stared toward the bare window. Yes, he said. The answer sat between us. When did you find out? Before dinner. And you didn't say anything. I assumed you'd work it out. You assumed I'd say yes. I assumed you wouldn't let us end up without a place. You didn't end up without a place. A hotel isn't a home. Neither is my house if I'm not allowed to decide who lives there. His mouth tightened. I waited for him to tell me I was right. Dad was the softer parent, the one who slipped contraband records beside my purse and winked. I had mistaken his softness for fairness for most of my life. He placed the letter opener in the box beside me. I don't want to fight, he said. That's not the same as not taking a side. I'm not taking sides. You knew, and you let Mom announce it in front of everyone because you thought I wouldn't say no there. That is not what happened. Then tell me what happened. A mover appeared in the doorway. Sorry, is this box ready? Dad stood. Yes, he said. Everything's ready. He walked out before I did. At 10:30, Abby found me in the upstairs hall, removing blue tape from a closet door. Are you still not speaking to me? You haven't spoken to me either. I brought you coffee. That was coffee. It was an opening. I didn't know beverages were binding. She folded her arms. I said I was sorry. You said you were sorry things got heated. They did. You called my marriage a mistake. I said I shouldn't have said it. Do you believe it? Her eyes shifted toward the stairs. Daniel doesn't like me. This isn't about whether Daniel likes you. He's been judging me since the first time we met. The first time you met, you asked him to drive you to the airport. My car wouldn't start. You had known him 20 minutes. He said yes. Yes, he did. And he's held it against me ever since. Has he ever mentioned it? He doesn't have to. He has a way of looking at people. You mean he notices what's happening? There. You sound exactly like him. What does that even mean? You were never this suspicious. I laughed in disbelief. You offered our guest room to 2 people. They are our parents. You keep changing the noun as though it changes the verb. Her mouth twitched. That sounded like Daniel. It sounded like me. We stared at each other. Below us, Mom called Abby's name. I'm coming, she called back immediately. Then, quieter, she said, I didn't tell them you agreed. I said you had room and that you wouldn't say no. You don't hear a problem with that? I thought I knew you. No, you knew what I usually did. Her face closed. She went downstairs. By noon, the house was chaos. The movers had loaded most of the furniture, but Mom kept changing destinations. A side table meant for storage was redirected to the hotel. 2 suitcases meant for the hotel disappeared into the storage truck. Dad carried the same cardboard box from room to room without putting it anywhere. Marcus arrived wearing work boots and an old sweatshirt. Unlike Abby, he went directly to Luis and asked what needed lifting. Electrical work finished? I asked when we crossed paths. Not even close. I'm sorry. So am I. He glanced toward the dining room where Abby and Mom were arguing over a box of table linens. I didn't know she told them you'd agreed, he said. She didn't. She told them I wouldn't refuse. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. That sounds like Abby. You told her they couldn't stay with you? I told her we couldn't put them in the downstairs guest room while half the outlets are hanging out of the wall. She turned that into impossible. Is there another room? Our office. It's small, but yes. I looked at him. He looked toward Abby again. I suggested it. What did she say? That 6 weeks would destroy our relationship. At least she asks you before volunteering your house. His expression sharpened. I'm not your enemy, Leah. I didn't say you were. You said it like I'm hiding behind her. I pulled tape from the closet door, though none remained. Maybe you are. He nodded once, accepting the hit. Maybe I am. At 2, Daniel appeared in the front doorway carrying a paper bag. Dad saw him first. You came. Leah forgot lunch exists, Daniel said. He handed me the bag. Turkey sandwich, chips, apple. Rectangular sandwich halves, even from a deli. You didn't have to drive over, I said. I know. Mom entered the hallway. Her expression became politely blank. Hello, Daniel. Merry Christmas, Diane. It's not Christmas. People keep telling me that. Dad laughed before catching himself. Daniel didn't stay. He carried 2 boxes down the stairs because they were in his path, shook Marcus's hand, and told me he would see me at home. No lecture. No visible anger. Nothing my family could point to. After he left, Mom said, That was nice. I waited. She adjusted the scarf at her neck. I never said he wasn't nice. By 4:30, the house was empty. Mom walked through each room once, touching door frames and checking windows. Dad stood on the front lawn with his hands in his coat pockets. Abby leaned against Marcus, crying quietly. I watched her and felt the old reflex rise. Go to her, wrap an arm around her, tell her it was all going to be fine. I stayed where I was. Mom locked the front door and handed the keys to Dad. At the hotel, the 7 boxes marked with my crossed-out name would not fit on the luggage cart. Mom looked at my SUV. Just for tonight, she said. I should have said no. Instead, I opened the back. When I got home, Daniel was in the garage replacing the porch bulb. He climbed down from the step stool and looked through my rear window at the boxes packed to the roof. Neither of us spoke. Then he asked, Just for tonight? I hated that he knew the exact words. Yes. Daniel folded the step stool. Okay. I opened the garage door. He didn't help me unload. I lowered the rear seats and dragged the first box toward me. It was heavier than it looked. Daniel carried the step stool to its hook on the wall. You're really going to watch me do this? I asked. He turned. You told them yes. I told my mother I would keep 7 boxes overnight. I didn't join a cult. You said the guest room was not an option and they put part of their household in our garage before sunset. They couldn't fit it on the luggage cart. So I helped. He rubbed both hands over his face. Of course you did. The box shifted in my arms. Something glass knocked against something else. Could you at least open the door? He pressed the button. The garage door descended behind me with an electric rattle. That's not the door I meant. I know. I set the box down too hard. You're being a jerk, probably. You don't get to punish me because I didn't perform my boundary correctly. His expression changed. I kept going because I was tired and because I had found the spot that hurt. You made this into a test. I either do exactly what you think I should do, or I prove everyone right. I did not say that. You didn't have to. You looked through my car like I'd smuggled in my parents. They are trying to get into this house one object at a time. It's 7 boxes. It's never the number, Leah. I know. It's the principle. Everything is a principle with you lately. He stared at me. That's unfair. So was letting me unload alone to teach me a lesson. I wasn't teaching you a lesson. I was trying not to make a decision for you. It was a cardboard box, Daniel. Not a decision. He looked at the remaining boxes, then at the one by my feet. You're right, he said. I had prepared myself for another argument. The apology left me briefly stranded. I shouldn't have done that, he continued. I'm angry, and I wanted you to feel how angry I was without having to say it. That was childish. A little. A lot. Yes. He stepped into the SUV and pulled the next box forward. Where do you want them? Along the side wall. Your car won't fit. I'll park outside tonight. No. We'll move the lawnmower. It took us 15 minutes. Neither of us spoke except to warn the other about fingers and corners. One box made a sloshing sound. Daniel paused. Is there liquid in here? I checked the label. Kitchen. Your mother stored soup in our garage? It might be olive oil. That's somehow worse. The last box contained the silver candlesticks. One had broken through the newspaper and was sticking out at an angle. Daniel set it carefully beside the others. "How long is tonight?" he asked. "I'll call her in the morning." "That isn't an answer. It's the answer I have." He leaned against the wall, arms folded. I recognized the posture. It was the same one Abby used, but Daniel's silence made me supply my own accusations. "I need you to stop looking at me like I'm failing," I said. "I don't think you're failing. You think I'm letting them win. This isn't about winning. It feels like it is." He glanced at the 7 boxes. "I think they're testing whether your no means no. I think you're hoping that if you remain helpful enough, they'll forgive you for saying it." "That's not—" I stopped. Daniel waited. "I don't want Mom's pictures ruined," I said. "Neither do I. I don't want Dad miserable in a hotel. Neither do I. You're better at acting like it doesn't bother you. No, I'm better at believing their discomfort isn't automatically ours to remove." He picked up the crushed newspaper that had fallen from the candlestick box. "They can stay here until Friday," he said, "if you want." "Our garage." "Yes." "You don't give me permission." "No, I agree with you. That's what our means." I let out a breath. "Friday," I said. Upstairs, we ate reheated takeout at the kitchen counter. The refrigerator still held Mom's Christmas plate. Neither of us touched it. At 9, Dad called. "We have the wrong suitcase. I put him on speaker." "What do you mean?" "I mean, the suitcase here contains 12 pairs of your mother's shoes and no underwear." In the background, Mom said, "You don't have to announce that. Who packed 12 pairs of shoes for 6 weeks?" I asked. "Your mother." "I can hear you," she called. "Where's the right suitcase? We think storage." Daniel stopped chewing. "Which storage unit?" "The big one." The big unit was packed floor to ceiling with most of their furniture and household belongings. Luis had warned us to place anything needed soon in the smaller unit near the entrance. "What does it look like?" I asked. "Blue," Dad said. "Both of your suitcases are blue. This one has wheels." "They both have wheels." Mom took the phone. "It's the larger blue one with a leather tag." I remember it. It was in the upstairs hall. "Well, it isn't here. Can you manage tonight?" A pause. "We'll buy what we need," she said. "Okay." Another pause. I could feel the shape of the request waiting on the line. "The storage office opens at 8, she said. "I know. Your father has the key." "Okay, we can call Abby." "Okay." Mom's voice tightened. "You don't have to keep saying, okay. What do you want me to say?" "Nothing." "Good night." She hung up. Dad texted me 30 seconds later. "Can you come at 8? Your mom doesn't want to ask." Daniel read the message over my shoulder. "You're going," he said. It wasn't a question. "They need clothes. Your sister owns clothes. I'm not asking Abby to lend Dad underwear. She could go to the storage unit. She has contractors. She always has contractors. I'm going." He nodded. I wanted him to object so I could defend my father. His agreement made the choice feel like mine. At 7:50 the next morning, Dad was waiting outside the storage office in the same clothes he had worn the day before. He held 2 paper coffee cups and gave me one. "Peace offering," he said. "For what?" "Your mother said I was manipulative." "Were you?" I used the phrase, "your mother doesn't want to ask." "That is advanced level manipulation. I thought it was basic." We sat in my SUV until the manager unlocked the gate. Dad sipped his coffee. "I don't like hotels." "I know. The thermostat turns itself off when we leave." "That sounds efficient." "It feels judgmental." I smiled. He looked down at his cup. "Daniel angry with me?" "You could ask him." "I'm asking you." "Yes." Dad nodded as though I had confirmed the weather. "He's entitled to be. You could tell him that too." "I might." We found the suitcase behind a rolled rug and 3 dining chairs. Moving, it required us to shift 6 boxes, one of which split at the bottom and released a dozen hardcover books onto the concrete floor. Dad bent to pick them up. "Leave those. I've got it. I'm not helpless. I didn't say you were. Everyone keeps treating us like we are. Move, don't move. Keep this, throw that away, stay here, stay there. He lifted 2 books and winced. I crouched beside him. Are you hurt? My back is stiff. Then stop. See? Dad, having a stiff back isn't a political position. He laughed despite himself and leaned against a chair. I repacked the books. On top was a collection of essays Daniel had given him the previous Christmas. The bookmark sat around page 40. He liked that one, I said. I know. I intend to finish it. We loaded the suitcase into my car. As I drove him back, Dad said, Your mother thought you'd ask us to come home with you after you saw the hotel. I kept my eyes on the road. Did you? No. Your pause was interesting, I wondered. That isn't the same. No. He turned his coffee cup between his palms. Why didn't you ask me directly? I said. I knew you would say yes. That's not a reason. It is when yes makes things worse for you. I glanced at him. Dad looked out the window. I don't always know how to disagree with your mother. That isn't news. She was hurt. So was Daniel. I know. And me. He looked at me then. I know. It was the first time anyone in my family had said it. At the hotel, Mom opened the door before we knocked. She pulled the suitcase inside and unzipped it on the bed. You found it. Behind the rug, Dad said. The room smelled like coffee and the floral spray hotels used to disguise older carpet. Mom's cinnamon latte cup from moving day sat on the dresser beside a row of travel-sized toiletries. You could have bought what you needed, I said. I don't like wasting money. Dad held up the paper cup in his hand. That's coffee, Mom said. Coffee is medicinal. I laughed, and Mom almost did. For a moment, the room softened. Then she picked up a blouse from the suitcase and said, The hotel only has laundry service on weekdays. You can use our washer, I said. The offer came automatically. Mom looked at me. I wouldn't want to impose. You can bring laundry over. That isn't the same as moving in. No, apparently it isn't. Dad closed his eyes. I set my car keys on the dresser. Please don't do that. I thanked you. You thanked me like I offered you water after setting your house on fire. Your sister called 3 hotels yesterday. That doesn't have anything to do with what I said. She is trying. So am I. Mom folded the blouse. Then why does everything feel harder? Because I wasn't doing all of it, I thought. Instead, I said, The boxes in my garage need to go somewhere by Friday. Her hand stopped. We can't put them here. Then they can go to storage. The albums will be damaged. They won't. Fine. She folded the blouse again, though it was already folded. I picked up my keys. On the way out, I texted Abby. Mom and Dad's 7 boxes are in my garage. They need to be moved by Friday. Storage or your house. She called before I reached the elevator. You can't keep 7 boxes for 6 weeks? I can. I'm choosing not to. Why? Because no one asked me, oh my God, are we still doing this? The elevator doors opened. An older couple stepped out, smiling at me. I waited until they passed. Yes, I said, we're still doing this. Fine. Put them in storage. You have the storage key? No. Dad does. I'm working Friday. Then pick them up tomorrow. I have contractors. Abby. What? They're your responsibility now. She went silent. For once, I didn't fill it. You're serious, Abby said. Yes. What am I supposed to do with them? That is the question you expected me to answer. I didn't put them in your garage. You told Mom I'd keep them. I told her you had room. That sentence needs to stop opening doors in my house. She made an exasperated sound. You're enjoying this. The accusation surprised me enough that I didn't answer immediately. You're enjoying making me deal with everything, she continued. It's revenge. I'm asking you to move 7 boxes. Because Daniel gave you a deadline? Because I gave you one. He's standing next to you, isn't he? I'm in a hotel hallway. Then why are you whispering? The elevator dinged behind me. I'm not whispering. You sound exactly like him. And you sound exactly like Mom. That stopped her. I regretted it before the silence ended, but I didn't take it back. I'll talk to Marcus. she said coldly. Thursday. I heard you. She disconnected. I stood outside the elevator with my thumb pressed against the dark phone screen. A housekeeping cart blocked half the hallway. Clean towels were stacked on top in perfect white columns. The door to my parents' room opened. Dad stepped out holding the coffee pot from the hotel room. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Returning this to the front desk. It lives in the room. Your mother says it smells like burnt plastic. It's a hotel coffee maker. That's its natural scent." He looked at my phone. "Your sister?" "Yes, good talk?" We used words. He nodded toward the elevator. "That's more than some families." I took the coffee pot from him and carried it back into the room. Mom was standing at the window with her back to us. "I told Abby about the boxes," I said. "I wish you hadn't." "Why?" "She has nowhere to put them. Neither do you. They were fine in your garage. They were fine because I had not yet objected in a way you believed." Mom turned. "I don't recognize this version of you." "You do. You just don't like hearing her." Her face tightened. Dad took the coffee pot from me and put it on the dresser. "We should all take a breath," he said. Mom stared at him. "Whose side are you on?" His hand remained on the coffee pot. "I'm on the side where nobody asks me that question." She laughed without humor. "Of course you are." I left before either of them could pull me back into the middle. At home, Daniel had brought Dad's records up from the floor and arranged them beside the turntable. The broken lamp stood in the corner without a shade. "You kept that?" I asked. "It followed you home." "It's broken. Your father says it works if you hold the cord. Please don't test that. I enjoy our marriage." I hung up my coat. "Abby thinks I'm enjoying this." "Are you?" The question irritated me because I had been waiting for him to dismiss it. "I don't know." Daniel lowered the dust cover over the turntable. "I don't enjoy Mom being upset," I said. "I don't enjoy Dad living in a hotel. But when I told Abby the boxes were hers, there was a second where I felt—" I searched for the word. Relieved. That isn't the same as happy. It felt mean. It felt like putting down something heavy by handing it to her. She picked it up when she promised to solve the problem. I looked at the row of records. "You always have the right sentence." "No, I don't. Sometimes I have 10 wrong ones and wait until 9 of them get tired." I smiled. He came closer. "Do you want the boxes gone?" "Yes. Then I'm glad you said so. And if Mom cries, she probably will. And if Abby doesn't come, then you decide what happens next. You're not going to tell me? I've been informed I'm too involved. You are very annoying." "I've also been informed of that." He kissed me, slowly enough that I remembered we had been married before my family turned the guest room into a referendum. On Thursday evening, Abby's SUV pulled into our driveway at 6:10. Marcus was driving. Abby sat in the passenger seat with her arms folded. Daniel was upstairs changing after work. I opened the garage before they reached the door. Marcus got out wearing the same work boots he'd worn on moving day. "Where do you want us to start?" 7 boxes along the wall. Abby climbed out. "Hello to you too." "Hi." She looked toward the open garage. "Mom says one of them has oil in it. One made a liquid sound." "Oh, good. You packed the kitchen." "Mom packed the kitchen. She did it while you were selecting hardware. You're going to use that forever, aren't you?" "Probably through spring." Marcus lifted the first box. "This one says photographs." "It's heavy," Abby told him. "I've noticed." She waited until he was inside their vehicle, then faced me. "Are you really going to make them stay in that hotel for 6 weeks? I'm not making them. You know what the Hawthorne is costing? They could rent the furnished apartment. Mom hates it. Mom hasn't seen it. She saw the pictures. She hates the fake fern. She hates that it looks like a place people stay after their houses flood." That is extremely specific. That's what she said. I leaned against the garage door frame. "What do you want me to do?" "You know, say it." Her eyes narrowed. The front door opened and Daniel stepped into the garage. He had changed into jeans and the old gray shirt. "Hi, Marcus," he said. Marcus emerged from behind the SUV. "Hey." Abby's shoulders stiffened. Daniel glanced at her. Abby? Daniel? He picked up one of the boxes. You don't have to help, I said. I know. Abby gave a quiet laugh. Daniel stopped. Is there a problem? No. You're being very calm. Apparently I have a brand. Marcus coughed into his fist. Abby glared at him. Glad everyone's having fun. No one is, I said. Daniel carried the box to their car. Abby lowered her voice. Does he know you offered Mom your washing machine? Yes. Did you ask him first? No. Her eyebrows lifted. Because offering someone the use of an appliance for 2 hours isn't the same as moving 2 adults into our home for 6 weeks. So you decide which things require permission. We decide. There it is. That isn't an insult, Abby. It is when you use it to act superior. I'm not superior. I'm married. So am I. Then why didn't you ask Marcus before telling Mom and Dad they couldn't stay with you? Her face changed. Behind her, Marcus lowered a box to the pavement. I did ask him. You told me you said the electrical work made the guest room unsafe, I said to him. You also said the office was possible. Abby turned. You talked about this? Marcus straightened. She asked, You told her our private conversation. You told your parents they could live in someone else's house. Stop saying it like that. How should we say it? I asked. She looked from me to Daniel, then to Marcus. 3 faces, no exit. The office is full, she said. With what? Marcus asked. Your drafting table, files, everything we moved out of the kitchen. We can rearrange it. Her mouth fell open. You want them to stay with us? I said it was possible. You said it would be a nightmare. It would. Daniel picked up another box. Both things can be true. Abby spun toward him. Could you stay out of one conversation? He raised one hand and walked away with the box. Marcus put his palms on the hood of the SUV. We should have discussed this before you promised them Leah's room. I was trying to protect our house by using hers. Abby looked at me. For the first time, she seemed less angry than exposed. The remaining boxes were loaded in silence. The one marked kitchen had leaked a thin line of olive oil along the bottom. Daniel reinforced it with tape, while Abby stood several feet away, watching him as if kindness were another kind of accusation. When Marcus closed the rear hatch, Abby said, Mom wants everyone to have dinner Sunday. Where? The hotel restaurant. Is she inviting Daniel? She said everyone. That isn't an answer. Abby's eyes flashed. Yes, Leah. Your husband is allowed to eat. Then we'll be there. After they left, Daniel and I stood in the empty space beside my car. Well, he said. Did you enjoy that? A little. I bumped his shoulder with mine. Sunday dinner began with Dad complaining that the restaurant's menu used the phrase, deconstructed pot roast. If you take it apart, it's no longer pot roast, he said. It's still beef, Marcus replied. That's not a defense. Mom had reserved a round table. Abby and Marcus arrived separately after arguing in the parking lot. Abby sat beside Mom. Marcus chose the chair next to Daniel. For the first 20 minutes, everyone behaved beautifully. We discussed the weather, the condo flooring, and whether Dad's missing phone charger was in storage. Mom asked Daniel about work. Daniel asked Mom whether the hotel pillows had improved. Then the food arrived. Mom cut into her salmon and said, The condo won't be ready until February 24th. I set down my fork. That's another 2 weeks. At least, Dad said. We can't stay here that long, Mom continued. They charge extra after 30 days. The furnished apartment is still available, I said. Mom's mouth tightened. Abby stared at her water glass. I looked at her. What? Nothing. Does your idea involve my house again? Mom said, No one is asking you for anything. Then what are we discussing? We're discussing a serious problem as a family. All right, there are 3 options. You can stay here, rent the apartment, or stay with Abby. Abby looked up. You forgot a 4th. No, I didn't. You have an empty room. Daniel remained silent. Everyone was watching me. Our house is not an option, I said. Not now, not if the condo is delayed again. Mom laid her napkin beside her plate. You would really leave us here for 2 months. I'm not leaving you anywhere. I will help you compare the choices you actually have. Dad looked at Abby. She shook her head before he could speak. Our house is a construction site. Marcus leaned back in his chair. No, the kitchen is a construction site. Abby stared at him. He met her eyes. The office can be cleared. The waiter approached with a water pitcher, saw our faces, and retreated. Mom's voice became very small. We would stay out of your way. Abby looked at me as if I had arranged the entire moment. I hadn't. That was the difference. For once, I had left a problem where it belonged, and it had found its way to someone else. Abby turned to Marcus slowly. You're offering our office. I'm saying we can make it work. You hated the idea. I hate every idea available. Dad nodded. That's how you know you've reached adulthood. No one laughed. Abby looked at Mom. The downstairs bathroom doesn't have a shower. We can use the one upstairs, Mom said. The hallway is covered in plastic. We can walk through plastic. There's dust everywhere. I raised 2 daughters. I have survived dust. Marcus leaned forward. The electrical work should be finished Wednesday. Once the outlets are closed, the downstairs is safe. We moved the drafting table into the dining room, stacked the files in our bedroom, and put the pull-out sofa in the office. We don't own a pull-out sofa, Abby said. We can move the futon down from the bonus room. Mom hates futons. Mom's expression stiffened. I have no opinion about futons. You said they're mattresses pretending to be furniture. Dad looked at her. That does sound like you. I said that 20 years ago. You were right then, he said. Abby closed her eyes. This isn't funny. No, Marcus said. It isn't. Something passed between them that made me look away. I had assumed Marcus escaped Abby's chaos by staying agreeable. Now I saw the cost of it on both of their faces. He had let her say no for them, then resented her for saying it. Mom reached for her water glass. We don't have to stay with anyone. Your father and I can find another hotel. With a cheaper monthly rate, Dad added. You hate this one, Abby said. I hate the coffee maker. The building itself hasn't offended me. It will, Mom told him. Daniel pressed his lips together. Abby looked at me. You're very quiet. I've already said what I'm willing to do. That must feel nice. It feels terrible. She seemed disappointed by the answer. The waiter returned, assessed the table, and began refilling glasses. When he reached Dad, Dad said, Do you have regular pot roast? Sir? Nothing. By dessert, it had been decided that my parents would stay at the hotel until Thursday, then move into Abby and Marcus's office. Mom insisted it would only be temporary. Abby repeated that the kitchen was unusable. Marcus ordered chocolate cake for everyone without asking, which was either generous or an act of surrender. In the parking lot, Abby caught my sleeve. You got exactly what you wanted. Daniel and Marcus were helping Dad put 2 hotel umbrellas into his trunk. Mom stood beneath the awning, inspecting the sky as if she held it personally responsible. I wanted you to ask me before offering my house. And now Mom and Dad are moving into mine. I didn't do that. You knew Marcus would offer. I barely knew Marcus had an opinion. Her face tightened. You talked to him on moving day. For 3 minutes. He never would have suggested the office if you hadn't made him feel guilty. That sounds like something you need to discuss with Marcus. Don't use therapy sentences on me. I'm not. You are. Daniel does that too. He makes normal things sound like patterns. Sometimes normal things are patterns. She let go of my sleeve. Can you help clear the office Tuesday? She asked. I almost answered before checking my own schedule. I can come from 6 to 8. That's it? Yes. We have to move the futon downstairs. Then we should do that first. She laughed sharply. You really have changed, apparently. On the drive home, Daniel glanced at me. 6 to 8? I want to help. Okay, I'm waiting. For what? For you to ask whether I really want to help. You just told me. You believe me? He kept his eyes on the road. I'm trying to. Tuesday evening, Abby's house smelled like sawdust and microwaved tomato sauce. Plastic sheeting divided the living room from the kitchen. The refrigerator had been moved into the laundry room, where it stood beside the dryer with an extension cord running along the baseboard. The 7 boxes from my garage occupied the center of the office. "You didn't unpack them," I said. "Where would I put anything?" Marcus had already dismantled the drafting table. He and I carried its top into the dining room, navigating around stacked cabinet doors and a boxed range hood. Abby followed us, moving small objects that were not in our way. "Watch the wall," she said. "The wall is covered in plastic," Marcus replied. "Watch the plastic." We set the tabletop against the far wall. At 6:30, Dad arrived with the futon tied into the back of his SUV. He had borrowed rope from the hardware store and secured the frame using knots that seemed emotional rather than structural. "How did you get this into the car?" I asked. "Gravity. That usually works the other direction." Marcus helped. Marcus came outside carrying a drill. We got the futon downstairs by removing the office door and turning the frame twice in the hallway. Abby said careful 14 times. On the 15th, Marcus put down his end. "If you say it again, I'm leaving this in the hall. I'm trying to help. You're narrating." Dad leaned against the wall. "I find it reassuring." Marcus picked up the frame. "Thank you, Paul." Once the futon was open, it consumed most of the room. A narrow path remained between the mattress and the boxes. "Where are they supposed to put their clothes?" Abby asked. "The closet," I said. "The closet is full." "Of what?" She opened it. Inside were winter coats, folding chairs, a vacuum cleaner, 2 lamps, a box of gift bags, and what appeared to be every empty shipping carton Abby had received in the previous year. "We might need those boxes," she said. "You need the closet now. They're good boxes." Dad looked at me. "This family has a cardboard problem. I pulled the first shipping box free. Recycle." Abby took it from me. "Not this one. It's the perfect size for shoes. Your mother packed 12 pairs. Maybe she'll use it." Dad laughed. Abby did not. At 7:50, the closet was mostly clear. My arms ached and sawdust had worked its way inside my shoes. "We still need sheets," Abby said. "There are sheets in the linen closet. Those are for the queen bed. It's a full-size futon." "Exactly. Use queen sheets. They'll be too loose. Then buy full sheets." She stared at me. "Can you stop at Target?" "It's 8. You said 6 to 8. It is now 8. You can't stay another hour?" "No." The word landed more loudly than I intended. Dad was standing in the office doorway. He looked between us. Abby lowered her voice. "You're really leaving?" "Yes. You know I have to move everything out of the upstairs bathroom before Thursday. Marcus can help. He has work. So do I." She looked wounded, and I had to remind myself that her feeling was real even if the obligation wasn't. "I'll bring dinner Thursday," I said. "I can be here at 5:30. Her shoulders relaxed a fraction. "What kind? Don't make me regret this." Dad walked me to my car. "You don't have to bring dinner," he said. "I know. Your mother will want chicken. Abby has my number." He put his hands in his coat pockets. "You left at 8. I said I would." I noticed. "Are you disappointed?" "No." He looked toward the house. Through the front window, Abby was moving boxes while Marcus held the plastic sheeting aside. "I'm impressed," Dad said. On Thursday, I brought 2 roasted chickens, salad, rolls, and a pan of potatoes. Mom arrived carrying 4 suitcases and the hotel coffee pot. "You stole that?" I asked. "I paid for it. You hated it." "That isn't the point." "What is the point? They charged us $14 for the coffee pot, for taking it. You took it before you paid." I was making a statement. Dad carried the pot into Abby's house. "Your mother has become a criminal." Mom followed him. It was on the bill. Abby stood inside the office, staring at the luggage. 4 suitcases? "We consolidated," Mom said. "From what?" "More." Marcus coughed. Dinner was eaten from paper plates at the dining room table, which had been pushed against the wall to make room for the drafting table. Mom praised the chicken, then asked why I hadn't brought cranberry sauce. Dad tried to use the camp stove to warm gravy until Marcus explained that it could not be operated indoors. Abby spilled salad dressing on a stack of cabinet catalogs and blamed the angle of the table. It was crowded, inconvenient, and almost funny. Then Mom opened the refrigerator in the laundry room. "Where do you keep the milk?" "In the refrigerator," Abby said. "There isn't any. We're out." "You knew we were coming." "I knew. I didn't know you required ceremonial milk." Dad said, "I like milk. You drink orange juice. I also like milk." Mom closed the refrigerator. "It's fine." Abby stood. "I'll go get milk. You don't have to. You just said there isn't any." I said it's fine. "So why mention it?" "Because your father asked where it was." "I did not," Dad said. Everyone turned to him. He lifted both hands. I became involved later. I washed the paper plates before remembering they were disposable. Daniel found me stacking them beside the sink. "You know those can go away," he said. I panicked. He took the damp plates and threw them out. At 7:30, I put on my coat. Mom looked surprised. "You're leaving?" "I have work tomorrow." "We all have work," Abby said from the laundry room. Daniel picked up the empty chicken container. "We brought dinner," he said. "I thanked you." "I know." Mom touched my arm. "Could you take your father to the storage unit tomorrow? He needs his heavier coat." Dad looked down at the coat he was wearing. "This is heavy," he said. "Your gray one. I don't need it. You said this morning, I'll call if I need a coat." Mom's hand remained on my sleeve. "I can't tomorrow," I said. "You went last time." "Yes." She waited, but I didn't offer another day. On the drive home, I felt guilty enough to check my phone twice at red lights. No one called. At 11:40, it rang on my nightstand. "Abby," I answered quietly. "What happened?" Her voice came in a whisper. Mom reorganized my pantry. "You don't have a pantry right now." She made one in the laundry room. I sat up. Beside me, Daniel opened one eye. Abby continued. She threw away my spices. "Why?" She said they were expired, were they? "That is not the point." I pressed my lips together. "It isn't funny," she said. "I know. And Dad has been watching television at a volume usually associated with evacuation warnings. You can ask him to turn it down. He gets offended. He complains. That isn't the same as being wounded. You don't understand." I looked at Daniel in the dim room. He was awake now, watching me. "I understand exactly," I said. Abby went quiet. Then she whispered, "You knew what they were like." "Yes, and you still made them stay here." I closed my eyes. "No, Abby, you did. That is unbelievable," she said. "It's accurate. You gave them 3 options knowing Mom would never rent that apartment. I didn't know Marcus would offer your office. You knew he was angry with me. I knew he disagreed with you. Same thing to you, apparently." Daniel sat up and reached for his glasses. I lowered my voice. "Why are you calling me?" "I needed to talk to someone." "Then talk. But don't make me responsible for where they're sleeping." "I'm not. You just said I made them stay there because I'm tired. So am I." A cabinet door slammed on her end. Abby whispered, "Mom is coming. You're 35. You don't have to hide a phone call from her." "I'm not hiding." The line went dead. I put my phone face down. Daniel adjusted his glasses. "Everything okay?" Mom threw away Abby's spices. Finally, consequences. I laughed into my hand. "Were they expired?" he asked. "Apparently that isn't the point. It never is." He lay back down. I remained sitting. "Do you think I made them stay there?" "No." I knew the apartment wasn't realistic. It was realistic. Your mother didn't like it. That's what makes it unrealistic. Only in a family where dislike is treated as physical law. I picked at the edge of the comforter. Abby sounded awful. She has had them for 1 day. I know. Daniel removed his glasses again. You can feel bad for her without going over there. I wasn't going over there. You're wearing the face you make before you volunteer. What face? The one where you look like somebody has left a puppy in traffic. No puppies are involved. Then we can sleep. By breakfast, Mom had sent me a photograph of 3 spice jars on top of Abby's trash. One had expired 11 months earlier. Another did not have an expiration date because it appeared to have been purchased when labels were optional. I replied, "Please discuss this with Abby." Mom answered, "I was only cleaning." Dad texted separately, "Do you have our storage key?" "You had it last," I wrote. "Your mother moved it. Please discuss this with Mom." He sent a thumbs down. At 10, Abby called to ask where Dad's blue towels were. At 11:30, Mom called to tell me Abby had no bath mat. At 12:15, Dad wanted to know whether I remembered which box contained the cable for his record player. By 3, I had redirected all 3 of them to one another, so many times that I felt like a human switchboard. At 4:10, Mom said, "I don't know why you're being so unhelpful. I'm at work." I asked whether you remembered where the extra blankets went. "They're in the smaller storage unit, box-marked linens. So you did know?" "Yes. You could have said that 10 minutes ago." "I did." "You told me to ask Abby, because the blankets are for Abby's house. Everything is a jurisdiction now." A coworker passed my desk. I lowered my voice. "Mom, if you need a blanket, ask the person whose house you're in. She's on a conference call. Then wait. It's cold downstairs. Turn up the heat. Abby says the plastic doesn't hold heat properly. That doesn't make sense. I'm telling you what she said. Use the blanket off the futon. Your father is napping under it." I pressed 2 fingers between my eyebrows. "I'll call you after work. We might go to storage. Do you have the key?" "That's what your father was asking you." I hung up before I said something that would become a family quotation. At 5:30, I drove to the storage facility. I told myself I was going because I knew where the linens box was. 10 minutes? Maybe 15. I would retrieve 1 blanket, locate the key, and return home. Mom and Dad were waiting in Dad's SUV. Mom lowered her window. "I thought you were calling." "I was nearby." "You work 20 minutes from here," Dad said. I was nearby emotionally. He smiled. The storage key was in Mom's purse. Dad had put it there for safekeeping, then forgotten. We found the blankets, the gray coat he supposedly didn't need, a toaster, and a ceramic container Mom claimed was essential for wooden spoons. Each object required moving 3 others. When I checked the time, it was 6:40. I had 2 missed calls from Daniel. I called him from the parking lot. "Hey," he said, "where are you?" "Storage." A pause. "Why?" "They needed blankets." "I thought Abby needed blankets. They're for Mom and Dad, at Abby's." "Yes, that sounds like Abby needed blankets. It took an hour. We were supposed to meet at the restaurant." My stomach dropped. Dinner. He had made a reservation at the small Italian place near our house, the one we hadn't visited since before the move began. I forgot. I gathered that. "I can be there in 20 minutes. The reservation was at 6:30. Ask them to hold it." I did. They can't. Behind me, Dad was trying to fit the toaster into the back seat. "I'm sorry." "Okay, don't say it like that." "How should I say it?" "Like you believe me." "I believe you're sorry." "That doesn't sound better." "No," he said. "It doesn't." He ended the call. Mom walked over carrying the blankets. "Was that Daniel?" "Yes." "Is he upset?" "We had plans. I didn't ask you to come." I looked at her. "What?" she said. "I told you we could manage." "No, you told me you were cold, nobody knew where the key was, Dad needed his coat, and you might come here without access. I was informing you. You were waiting in the parking lot. Because you said you would call after work." Dad closed the SUV door. "We can discuss this later." "No," I said. "We're going to discuss it now." Mom drew the blankets closer to her chest. "I canceled a trip for the move. I spent Christmas packing your house. I found your suitcase, toured an apartment you refused to consider, stored your boxes, moved them to Abby's, cleared her office, brought dinner, and now I miss plans with my husband because you needed a blanket. You offered to do those things." The sentence hit harder because it was true. Dad looked at the pavement. Mom continued, quieter. "I didn't force you." "No. You just made needing me the loudest thing in every room." Her face went pale. I took the storage key from my pocket and placed it on top of the blankets. I'm going home. Dad said my name. Ask Abby to help unload. She has work, Mom replied automatically. So do I. I drove away before they did. Daniel was in the kitchen when I got home. A takeout container sat unopened on the counter. I brought you food, he said. I set down my purse. You didn't have to. I know. The words belong to my family, but he said them differently. No accusation, no receipt waiting to be collected. I'm sorry. I know. I genuinely forgot. I know. He opened the refrigerator, then closed it without taking anything out. Are you hungry? I asked. Not really. I could heat this up. It's for you. The distance between us was 6 feet of kitchen tile. I told them, I said. I told Mom everything I've done. How did that go? She said I offered. Daniel leaned both palms against the counter. Did you? Yes. He nodded. I wanted her to admit she made me. Why? Because then it wouldn't be my fault. What wouldn't? I looked toward the dark window over the sink. All of it. Missing dinner. Being angry. Feeling like I hate helping people I love. He crossed the kitchen but stopped before touching me. Leah, I don't need you to prove they're monsters. I know they aren't monsters. I know. That makes it harder. I know. I finally looked at him. You keep waiting for me to choose differently. Yes. At some point, aren't you going to get tired? His face tightened. I already am. The answer frightened me more than if he had yelled. He reached out then, placing one hand against my arm. I'm tired, he said. I'm not gone. I pressed my forehead to his chest. The next evening, I put my phone on silent and left it in the bedroom. Daniel and I ate the missed Italian dinner from takeout containers and watched an old movie neither of us could follow because we kept talking over it. When I checked my phone at 10, there were 6 messages. Nobody had died. Mom had found a spare blanket in Abby's hall closet. Dad had bought another charger. Abby had asked Marcus to pick up milk. The world had continued without me. For 4 days, I answered only during lunch and once after work. I drove Dad to storage on Saturday because I wanted to, then declined Mom's request to stop for groceries. I invited my parents to our house for dinner Sunday, but told them the evening ended at 8. They arrived with laundry. I let them use the washer and did not fold it. Mom folded it herself while criticizing the way my dryer wrinkled cotton. At 8:03, Dad put on his coat. Mom looked surprised. We haven't had coffee. We said 8, I reminded her. She looked toward Daniel, but he was rinsing dishes with his back to us. Dad picked up the laundry basket. Coffee at Abby's. Her machine is still in the dining room. Then we'll have adventurous coffee. After they left, Daniel checked the clock. 8:07, he said. I'm slipping. Terrible performance. He pulled me into the kitchen and danced with me for 20 seconds to music only he could hear. I laughed against his shoulder. The doorbell rang the following Wednesday at 9:30 at night. Abby stood on the porch wearing pajama pants beneath her winter coat. Her hair was tied in a knot, and she had no makeup on. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked past me into the living room. Daniel was reading on the sofa. He stood. Hi, he said. Abby looked at him. I need to talk to my sister. Daniel closed his book. I'll be upstairs. When he was gone, Abby turned to me. They can't stay with me anymore. Her voice broke on the final word. I waited. She wiped angrily beneath one eye. I need you to take them. No. Abby stared at me. You didn't even think about it. I have thought about it for weeks. 2 nights. No, just 2. Marcus and I need 1 weekend without them. Then buy them a hotel room for the weekend. Mom won't go. Mom not liking an option does not make it disappear. You sound like Daniel. I sound like the person you asked. She folded her arms tightly across her coat. You don't know what it's been like. You called me because Mom threw away oregano. That was the first night. What happened tonight? Abby looked toward the stairs, making sure Daniel was gone. Mom went into our bedroom. Why? She was looking for the heating pad. Did she ask? She said I was on the phone. Were you? That isn't the point. I waited. She opened my dresser. Abby said, "Why would the heating pad be in your dresser?" "It isn't. It's in the bathroom closet. Did she know that?" "She does now." Despite everything, a laugh rose in my throat. I covered it with my hand. Abby's eyes filled again. "This is funny to you." "No," you smiled. "Because Mom searched a dresser for a heating pad. She rearranged my underwear." The laugh escaped. Abby glared at me. "I'm sorry," I said. "That's terrible. You don't mean it." "I do. It's also a little funny." She said my folding system was wasteful. "You don't have a folding system." I did before she changed it. I sat on the arm of the chair. "What did you say to her?" "I asked her to stay out of our room." "And?" She cried. "Of course." Dad said I embarrassed her. "Of course." Then Marcus said he agreed with me, so Mom packed a suitcase. Where was she going? She didn't know. She just rolled it into the hallway and sat beside it. That is a strong visual. Leah. Sorry. Dad started yelling that nobody wanted them. Marcus went for a drive. Mom is still sitting beside the suitcase, and I told them I was coming here to fix everything. The final 2 words came out bitter. What does fixing everything mean? Getting you to take them, so you can go home and say I solved it. She looked away. That is what you meant, I said. I need 1 weekend. No, you need to go back and finish the conversation. I can't. Yes, you can. You always could. Could what? Talk to them without everything exploding. Nothing exploded because I gave them what they wanted before it could. You made it look easy. It wasn't. How was I supposed to know that? I stood. You could have asked. You could have noticed. You could have come on time once in your life and watched me do it. Her face hardened. Here we go. Yes, here we go. You asked for help. This is the help. Tell Mom she cannot enter your bedroom. Tell Dad he doesn't get to turn her feelings into your job. Tell both of them they can follow your rules or choose the apartment. They'll hate me. They don't hate me. They aren't speaking to you unless they need something. The words hit, and she saw it. I'm sorry, she said quickly. Are you? Yes. For that sentence, or because my face changed? She sank onto the sofa. I don't know how to talk to you anymore. You could start with the truth. I've told you the truth. You called my marriage a mistake because I wouldn't clean up something you did. That wasn't about Mom feeling unwanted. Abby pulled the sleeves of her coat over her hands. Daniel hates me. No, Daniel doesn't trust you. That's worse. It's more accurate. She glanced toward the stairs. He changed you. Yes. The answer startled her. He changed me because people do that when you love them. I sleep with the window cracked now. I know 3 ways to make eggs I don't like. I own a turntable and your father's entire James Taylor collection. None of that is the problem. You know what I mean? No. I'm done knowing what you mean when you won't say it. She looked down at the rug. For a long time, the only sound was the faint hum of our refrigerator in the kitchen. When you met him, she said, you stopped answering every time. Every time you called? Not just me. Because sometimes I was busy. You were busy before. I was allowed to interrupt myself. Her eyes lifted. The fear I had seen at Christmas was there again, no longer hidden by anger. When Marcus and I had that horrible fight after we got engaged, she said, you came over at midnight. You said you needed me. You stayed until morning. Yes. And when I quit the marketing firm, you helped me rewrite my resume. Yes. When Dad had that surgery, you handled all the appointments. We both agreed, no. Mom said we both would help. You helped. I visited twice and brought him a magazine. I sat in the chair across from her. Why are you listing this? Because when Daniel came along, you started saying things like, I can come Saturday. Or, I have plans tonight. You didn't just show up. That is normal, Abby. I know. She said it so quietly that I almost missed it. I know it's normal, she repeated, but it didn't feel normal. It felt like losing something. Me? She wiped beneath her eye. You, yes, and... She shook her head. The version of everything where I could screw up and know you'd make it okay. There it was, not an apology. Not yet, but the truth. Daniel didn't take that from you, I said. He made you see it. I was already seeing it. You never said anything. I didn't know how. You still came. Yes. So I thought, you thought I would always come. She nodded. The gesture was small and ashamed. I leaned back in the chair. Do you miss me or do you miss what I did? Both. The honesty hurt more than a prettier answer would have. At least you said it, I told her. She looked toward the dark window. I do love you. I know. You say that like it doesn't matter. It matters. But love without respect is just access, Abby. You loved me and believed that meant you had access to my time, my house, my attention, whatever you needed. Her mouth trembled. That sounds like Daniel. It's mine. She nodded slowly. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Daniel was giving us privacy in a house small enough that privacy required effort. Abby removed her coat. Underneath, she wore an old college sweatshirt with tomato sauce on one sleeve. Can I have coffee? She asked. Yes. Do I have to leave at a specific time? Probably. A surprised laugh came out of her. I made coffee. She sat at the kitchen counter while I put milk and sugar in hers. I drank mine black only because I was too tired to look for anything else. What am I supposed to say to them? She asked. The truth, that I don't want them there? Do you? She stared into her cup. Not like this. Then tell them what has to change. Mom will cry. Yes. Dad will get angry. Probably. Marcus might not come back until late. You need to talk to him, too. She gave me a tired look. Any other lives you want to repair while we're here? No? I retired. At 10:40, she stood. Daniel came downstairs as she was putting on her coat. He stopped in the hallway. Abby looked at him, then at me. I don't know how to fix what I said, she told him. Daniel's face gave nothing away. You could apologize, he said. I did. No. You explained why you said it and regretted that everyone got upset. Abby flinched. He continued. An apology doesn't have to be creative. She pulled her coat closed. I'm sorry I called your marriage a mistake, she said. I wanted Leah to feel guilty, and I used you to do it. Daniel glanced at me. Then he nodded. Thank you. That's all? That's the apology. I thought you'd say something. I accept that you said it. Abby looked confused. That isn't the same as trusting you again, he added. Her face tightened, but she didn't argue. When she left, Daniel locked the door. What happened? He asked. She told the truth. All of it? Enough for tonight. He looked toward the porch where her headlights swept across our front window. Are your parents coming here? No. His shoulders dropped. I hadn't realized how much tension he had been holding. At midnight, Abby texted, Home. Mom is in bed. Dad is pretending to sleep. Marcus came back. Nobody died. I answered, Good. Then I added, Proud of you. She sent a red heart. The next morning, Mom called before 8. Your sister says you told her to threaten us with an apartment. I told her she could make rules in her own home. She has always been welcome in ours. That isn't the same thing. She says we aren't allowed upstairs without asking. Okay. And your father has to use headphones after 10. Also okay. You don't think this is humiliating? I think it is specific. Mom went quiet. I could hear cabinet doors opening on her end. You've turned her against us too, she said. No. She asked you to stay out of her dresser. I was looking for a heating pad. You checked her underwear. It needed folding. I closed my eyes. Mom. What? You cannot reorganize an adult woman's underwear because you dislike the folding. I was helping. She didn't want that help. How was I supposed to know? Because it wasn't yours. She breathed out hard. We are your parents. Yes. That used to mean something. It still means something. It does not mean everything belongs to you. She hung up. I expected Abby to call within minutes. She didn't. At lunch, a message appeared in the family group. Mom, we talked about this, Abby wrote. Please stop blaming Leah for my rules. I read it 3 times. Mom did not answer. Dad sent a photograph of the hotel coffee pot sitting on top of Abby's new cabinet box with the caption, "Negotiations continue." Against my better judgment, I laughed. The weeks that followed were not peaceful, but they were different. Abby called less often. When she did, sometimes she wanted advice, and sometimes she only wanted to complain. I learned to ask which one before answering. Dad bought headphones. Mom stopped entering the bedroom, though she referred to the boundary as the upstairs embargo. Marcus finished the electrical work with the contractor and installed the cabinet handles Abby had spent so many hours choosing. 2 were crooked. I never mentioned it. I helped on Saturdays. Only Saturdays. At noon, I left. My parents moved into their condo on February 24th. Mom cried when she saw the bare rooms. Dad complained that the kitchen faucet had too many opinions. Abby unpacked the bathroom. Marcus assembled the bed. Daniel connected the television. I placed Aunt Carol's snow globe on the living room shelf. When I stepped back, Mom moved it 3 inches to the left. Neither of us said a word. "Too centered," she said. "It's your shelf." I know. I moved toward the next box. Mom hovered beside the kitchen where Abby was unpacking coffee mugs. "Leah, when you're finished in here, can you organize the pantry? I'm leaving at noon." Mom checked the microwave clock. "It's only 10:15. "Yes. We still have the entire kitchen." "Abby's doing the kitchen." Abby held up a mug. "I have achieved beverages. I don't know where anything should go," Mom said. "Then you and Abby can decide." Mom looked toward Daniel. He was crouched behind the television feeding cables through the back of the stand. "You're both leaving?" "We're in the same car," I said. I assumed he could take a rideshare. Daniel's shoulders moved once. I knew he was laughing. "We have plans." Mom's expression became careful. "Of course you do." Abby set down the mug. "She said she was leaving at noon. I heard her. You asked again. I was having a conversation with my daughter. And now you're having one with both of them." Mom stared at her. Abby returned to the mugs, suddenly fascinated by their handles. The old pattern had not vanished. It had simply become visible, which meant every attempt to restore it now made a sound. At 11:55, Daniel finished connecting the television. Dad turned it on and found a nature program already playing. A sea lion barked from the new speakers. "Too clear," Dad said. "I can make it worse," Daniel offered. Dad looked at him. "I owe you an apology." The room became quieter, though the sea lion continued barking. Daniel stood. Dad shoved his hands into his pockets. "Christmas. I knew Abby hadn't asked you. I let the conversation happen the way it did because I thought Leah would agree once we were all sitting there." Mom stopped opening a box. Dad kept his eyes on Daniel. "That wasn't fair to either of you." Daniel nodded. "No, it wasn't. I should have said something before dinner." "Yes." Dad waited, perhaps expecting Daniel to rescue him from the discomfort. Daniel didn't. "I'm sorry," Dad said. "Thank you." Mom crossed the room carrying a framed photograph that did not need to be carried. I think everyone said things they regret. Dad looked at her. "I'm talking about what I did." "I know, Paul. Then let me." She set the photograph on an end table. "Fine." Dad turned back to Daniel. "Do you still want the duck?" "The gravy boat. It's in one of these boxes. It's yours." "I know, but your name is on the bottom." Daniel smiled. "Then I want the duck." We left at noon. "In the car," I said. "He practiced that." "Probably." "He only mentioned it because he meant it." "I know." "Are you mad that Mom interrupted?" "Yes." "Me too." He reached across the console and took my hand. Our rescheduled Asheville trip began the following Friday. Mom texted while we were halfway through the mountains. "Do you remember which box had the soup bowls?" I watched the message appear on the dashboard screen. Daniel glanced over. "Do you?" he asked. "Yes." "Are you going to answer?" "No." "Do you want me to turn around so we can admire this moment?" "Keep driving." I muted the family group until Monday. The mountains did not collapse. My parents ate soup from different bowls. In April, Mom asked me to drive her to a furniture store on a Wednesday afternoon. "I'm working," I said. "You have personal time. I'm using it for personal things. This is personal. To you." She went quiet, but before the silence could become punishment, Abby said, "I can take you Friday." Mom replied, "I wanted to go Wednesday, then drive yourself Wednesday. I don't like the highway. The furniture store will exist Friday." I waited for Mom to explain why Abby's work was more important than mine. Instead, she sighed and agreed. That Friday, Abby sent me a picture of Mom sitting in a blue recliner with the caption, "Hour 3, send provisions." I sent back, "You have too much on your plate." She replied with an obscene gesture, and then, a minute later, a laughing face. We were not healed. I disliked the word because it made a relationship sound like a cut that could close cleanly. Abby and I were learning where the injuries were. Sometimes she apologized. Sometimes she performed an apology and became angry when I noticed. Sometimes I refused a favor too quickly because I enjoyed the unfamiliar power of no. Once, when she asked me to proofread a presentation, I said I was busy even though I wasn't. I spent the evening feeling righteous and miserable. The next morning, I called her. I could have helped, I said. I figured I said no because I wanted to. That's allowed, not for that reason. She was quiet. "Do you want me to send it?" "Yes." "Okay." She sent the presentation and I reviewed 6 slides instead of 40. Neither of us called that progress, but it was. In June, Abby invited me to lunch and didn't ask for anything. For the first 20 minutes, I waited for the request. "You keep looking at me like I'm about to sell you a timeshare," she said. "Are you?" "No." "Then why are we here?" "Because I miss you." I stirred my iced tea. "That was not the warm response I pictured," she said. "I'm adjusting. I can wait." She said it lightly, but I knew waiting was the hardest thing she could offer. By the end of lunch, she had told me about Marcus's new habit of buying expensive coffee beans and then ruining them with flavored creamer. I told her Daniel had started restoring Dad's broken lamp, despite my repeated warning that it intended to kill us. No crisis emerged. No errand was assigned. We left separately. In August, Mom referred to the winter at Abby's house as our ordeal. Abby nearly choked on her iced tea. We were eating dinner at the condo. Dad's blue recliner had arrived, and the snow globe still sat 3 inches left of center. "Your ordeal?" Abby asked. The situation was difficult for everyone. "You reorganized my underwear." Mom put down her fork. "Are we still talking about that? I will mention it at your funeral." "Abby," Dad said. "What?" "It'll lighten the mood." Mom looked at me, expecting disapproval. I ate a green bean. "Leah has the decency not to hold grudges forever," she said. I set down my fork. "Don't use me to correct her. I was complimenting you." "No, you were comparing us because you wanted Abby to behave." Mom stared at me. Abby said, "Thank you. I wasn't defending you. I'll take what I can get." Dad drank his water. "The green beans are good." In October, he brought the duck gravy boat to our house, wrapped in an old bath towel. Daniel placed it on the shelf above the turntable. "It looks judgmental," I said. "It has seen things," Dad replied. The broken lamp stood beside the bookcase with a new cord and a shade Daniel had found online. Dad switched it on. "Well," he said, "he saved it. He replaced everything except the base," I told him. The base was the good part. Dad sat on our sofa and listened to an entire side of the James Taylor album. Before he left, he asked whether we wanted to come to the condo for dinner Sunday. "Ask Mom," he added. "She's organizing it. I thought you were inviting us. I'm expressing interest. You're passing responsibility. I contain multitudes." He still avoided conflict. The difference was that I no longer mistook a charming retreat for neutrality. Thanksgiving was held at the condo. Mom assigned Abby the rolls and asked me to make the turkey, stuffing, potatoes, green beans, and 2 pies. "I can do the turkey and stuffing," I said. "Then who will do the rest?" "Other adults." Mom looked offended by the concept. Abby brought potatoes and a pie. Marcus made green beans with almonds that Dad carefully pushed to the side of his plate. Daniel bought a second pie because he said no, family should place its emotional stability on one dessert. Dinner was late. The rolls burned. Mom complained that the potatoes lacked salt, then took a second helping. Nothing terrible happened. That should have prepared me for Christmas. The first message arrived on December 3rd. Mom had made a list. Christmas Eve dinner would begin at 5. She wanted turkey again plus ham because Dad had mentioned ham in September. She assigned me the main dishes, appetizers, and dessert. Abby was bringing wine and something green. Marcus was responsible for ice. Daniel had no listed task. I read the message aloud at breakfast. Daniel looked up from his coffee. "I'm honored. You get to exist. I've been practicing." I called Mom. "Did you see the menu?" she asked. I did. "I kept it simpler this year. You assigned me most of it. You're the best cook. Abby can cook." Her kitchen only recently recovered. Her kitchen has been finished for 10 months. She's hosting a work event that week. I'm working too. Mom sighed. "What do you want to make?" "Nothing." There was a pause. "Nothing?" "Daniel and I are spending Christmas morning at home. We'll come to the condo in the evening, but I'm not cooking the whole meal. Then what are we supposed to eat? We can order something or everyone can bring one dish." "Order what on Christmas?" "Chinese food, barbecue, sandwiches. Your father can't eat sandwiches for Christmas." Dad's voice sounded in the background. "I can." Mom covered the phone badly. "You aren't part of this conversation. He's part of Christmas," I said. "You know what I mean?" I almost smiled. "I know what you want," I said. "That's different." She became quiet. "We're coming in the evening," I continued. "We'll bring one dish. Tell me which one after everyone decides what they're doing. This family used to enjoy traditions. I enjoyed parts of them. Your sister is willing to help. Good. Ask her what she wants to make. I shouldn't have to negotiate Christmas with my own daughters. You don't. You can tell us your plan, and we can tell you what we're available for." The silence lasted so long, I checked the screen to make sure the call had not dropped. Then Mom said, "If everyone is going to treat it like an obligation, perhaps we shouldn't have Christmas at all." "Okay," I said. Mom waited. "Okay, what?" "If you don't want to have Christmas, don't have it." "That isn't what I said. You said perhaps we shouldn't." "I expected you to care." "I do care." "I'm still not cooking the entire meal. You would really let the holiday disappear over a few side dishes?" "It isn't disappearing." "Daniel and I are having Christmas at home. We invited you to have a simple dinner with us at the condo. You invited me to my own home?" I suggested a plan involving takeout. "Yes." Mom exhaled hard. "I can't talk to you when you're like this. All right, stop agreeing with everything. I'm trying to respect what you say." "You're taking me literally." "Yes." She hung up. I set the phone on the kitchen table. Daniel had been watching me over the rim of his coffee mug. "Christmas is canceled," I said. "All of it?" "Apparently. Even the parts occurring in unrelated houses." She hasn't clarified the jurisdiction. He reached for the calendar beside the refrigerator and drew a line through Christmas dinner at condo. "What are you doing?" "Respecting the cancellation." I laughed, but my stomach felt hollow. At 11, Mom sent a message to the family group. "Due to everyone's schedules and preferences, we will not be having our traditional Christmas gathering this year. Your father and I hope you all enjoy whatever plans work best for you." Dad responded, "Do I still get ham?" Mom did not answer. Abby called me. "What happened?" "I told Mom I wasn't making dinner. She canceled Christmas because you wouldn't cook. She says it was because of everyone's schedules and preferences. I told her I'd bring wine and something green. I hadn't decided what." "You had 3 weeks. That isn't the issue." "Then you understand." Abby went quiet. A year earlier, that silence would have filled me with urgency. I would have proposed a menu, divided the work, called Mom, and made the holiday happen before anyone could say I had failed them. I waited. "What are you going to do?" Abby asked. Spend Christmas morning with Daniel. And dinner? Eat something you're really letting her cancel. She is an adult woman. I'm not letting her do anything. Dad wants ham. Dad can buy ham. That is a bleak sentence. It's also true. She sighed. Okay. I'm trying something new. Over the next 2 weeks, Mom did not mention Christmas. She called to ask whether I had her recipe for pecan pie, then insisted she was only checking because she was organizing recipes. Dad called Daniel about the turntable and casually asked what time we would not be celebrating. Your mother has purchased a ham, he said when Daniel put him on speaker. Good for her, I called from the kitchen. She says it's for sandwiches. Then she has lunch covered. She bought 12 pounds. Dad, I'm just reporting facts. At work, people asked what I was doing for the holiday. Every answer made me feel as though I were confessing to something. Quiet morning with my husband, I said. That sounds perfect, one coworker replied. I almost corrected her. At home, Daniel bought cinnamon rolls, a bottle of champagne, and 2 steaks large enough to concern me. It's Christmas, not our final meal, I said. We don't know what your mother has planned. She canceled it. Exactly. We may have entered a lawless period. On Christmas Eve, Abby sent me a photograph of 6 Chinese takeout cartons lined up on her kitchen counter. I ordered too much, she wrote. For whom? Mom, Dad, Marcus, me. I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. We're taking it to the condo tomorrow at 5. This is not a rescue. People need dinner and Dad cannot eat 12 pounds of ham alone. A third message followed. He says he can. We disagree. I typed, Mom knows. She knows food is arriving. Does she know we might? I deleted we and changed it to Daniel and I. Not from me, Abby replied. Tell her or don't. You're invited, not assigned. I read that sentence twice. Daniel was on the living room floor wrapping a gift for me badly enough that half the box remained visible. What do you think? I asked. About what? I showed him the messages. He sat back on his heels. What do you want? I want Christmas morning here. So do I. I want to go to the condo after. Okay, but not at 5. He nodded. 6? 6? I told Abby we would come at 6 and bring pie. She replied with a thumbs up, then sent another message. Buy it. I did. Christmas morning belonged to no one else. We slept late. Daniel burned the first pan of cinnamon rolls because he was trying to fix the ribbon on my present. I opened the windows while he carried the smoking pan to the porch. Tradition, he said. This has never happened before. Traditions have to begin somewhere. We ate the second batch at the kitchen table. My phone stayed upstairs. Daniel gave me a leather weekend bag with a luggage tag that read, Leah Mercer, return to Daniel, please. Inside was a printed reservation for Asheville in April. You already took me to Asheville, I said. I liked you there. I'm available in other cities. I'll consider them next year. I gave him a framed photograph from our trip. Behind us, the mountains were blue with distance, and my hair was blowing across half his face. It's mostly your hair, he said. You're welcome. We took a walk through the neighborhood, drank champagne before noon, and watched part of a terrible holiday movie with the sound low. Nothing in the morning was impressive enough to photograph for other people. That was what I loved about it. At 5:30, we put on our coats. Daniel carried the bakery pie. I carried nothing. You feel weird? He asked as we walked to the car. Yes. Want to stay home? No. Want me to ask again in 10 minutes? Yes. He did. My answer stayed the same. At the condo, the door was unlocked. Voices came from the dining room. Mom said, I simply don't understand why she needs to make a point out of everything. Abby answered, She isn't making a point. She told you what she was willing to do. She used to enjoy cooking for everyone. She used to cook because nobody else did. I stopped in the entryway. Daniel stood behind me holding the pie. Mom said, Your sister is perfectly capable of speaking for herself. I know. You just don't listen when she does. Dad noticed us first. He was seated at the table with a glass of iced tea. They're here, he announced. Mom and Abby turned. The table had been set with Mom's gold-rimmed china. White takeout cartons stood between crystal glasses and folded cloth napkins. A glazed ham occupied the center of the table, despite the presence of 3 containers of Chinese food. There were 6 place settings. Mom had expected us. "You're late," she said. "We said 6, I replied. The microwave clock read 5:58. Dad examined his watch. "Technically, they're early." Marcus stood. "Give me the pie before this becomes evidence." Daniel handed it over. Abby looked at me. I was explaining something. I heard. Mom sat down. "I don't want another argument." "Then don't have one," Abby said. "Abigail. I called Leah's marriage a mistake last year." The room changed. Mom looked toward Daniel. "There is no need to bring that up." "There is. I said it because she told me no, and I wanted to hurt her until she changed her mind." Daniel pulled out my chair. I sat. Abby remained standing. I blamed him because that was easier than admitting Leah had a reason to stop doing everything for us, she continued. And we all benefited from pretending she didn't. "I never expected her to do everything," Mom said. "You expected her to cook Christmas dinner after she packed half your house and canceled a trip to manage your move. No one asked her to cancel that trip." I almost laughed at the familiar sentence. "Abby didn't. You didn't have to ask," she said. "You made being disappointed feel like an emergency." Leah fixed it. Dad stayed out of it. I got to be the daughter who meant well. Dad lowered his eyes to his plate. Mom's face had gone pale. "So now this is all my fault." "No," I said. "That isn't what she said. It certainly sounds like it. Abby volunteered my house." Dad knew she hadn't asked me. I kept saying yes because I didn't know how to survive your disappointment. Everyone did a part. And Daniel showed up and decided we were dysfunctional. Daniel sat beside me. "I never used that word. You didn't have to." Abby put both hands on the back of her chair. "He didn't do this, Mom. You don't know what he says to her in private. I know what I said in public." Mom looked at Abby as if she had switched sides in a war. Abby's voice softened. Her marriage was never the problem. The problem was that we liked her better when she had no limits. Mom turned to me. "Is that what you think?" I considered making the answer gentler. I had spent a year learning that gentleness and dishonesty were not the same thing. "I think you love me," I said. "I also think you got used to love meaning I would make things easy." Her mouth trembled. "I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't tell you." "You're telling me now." "Yes." Dad cleared his throat. "I knew," he said. Mom looked at him. "Not all of it," he added, "but enough." "Everyone knew except me?" "No," I said. We all knew different pieces and kept handing them to each other. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Dad lifted a takeout carton. "Is this beef?" Marcus sat. "That one is broccoli. Broccoli is not a complete identity." The tension broke just enough for us to breathe. We passed cartons around the table. Mom put 2 slices of ham on Dad's plate, though he had not asked. Abby spooned rice for Marcus without checking whether he wanted it. I reached automatically for Daniel's water glass, intending to refill it, then stopped. He saw me stop and smiled. Halfway through dinner, Mom said, "The turkey would have been nice." Abby closed her eyes. Mom added quickly, "But this is fine." It was not an apology. It was barely progress. Still, Abby opened her eyes again. Dad ate sesame chicken with a side of ham and declared the combination confused but promising. Marcus had brought ice even though no one assigned him to. Daniel cut the bakery pie. Mom admitted it was better than the recipe she had called me about. At 7:50, she started the coffee maker. I put on my coat. "You're leaving?" she asked. "We said we would. We haven't had coffee." "No." The old pressure appeared between us, polished by years of use. Then Mom looked at Abby, at Dad, and finally at Daniel. "All right," she said. "Thank you for coming." I waited for the rest. There wasn't any. Abby carried plates into the kitchen. She did not ask me to help. Dad hugged me at the door. "Next year," he whispered, "I'm cooking. You own one recipe. Ham. That doesn't count. It fed 6 people and remains largely intact. Mom hugged me next. Her arms were stiff at first, then tightened. I don't know how to do this differently, she said near my ear. Start by believing me when I tell you what I can do. She pulled back. I'll try. It wasn't enough to repair everything. It was enough to answer honestly. Daniel and I were seated again only because Dad insisted we take one final picture. Beneath the table, Daniel found my hand and threaded his fingers through mine. A year earlier, that gesture had felt like choosing sides. Now it was simply my husband holding my hand. At 8, we left. The cold air smelled like chimney smoke. Behind us, through the condo window, I could see Abby wiping the table, while Mom put leftovers into containers. Dad stood between them, eating one more slice of ham with his fingers. No one followed me to the parking lot with an extra task. Daniel opened my car door. "Home?" he asked. I looked once more at the lit window, then at him. Home.